I'm Ashley, enjoying the tranquil life alongside my husband, John. Yet there's a recurring issue. My brother's wife, Rachel. Together, they have a 3-year-old daughter named Aydah, our cherished niece, adored by both John and me. While it's enjoyable to have Aydah visit occasionally, Rachel seems to bring her over almost every week. Ashley, could you look after Aydah this week? Rachel asks, as usual. Sure thing. Aydah, behave yourself, okay? Okay. Aydah eagerly bounds from the entryway to our living room, full of energy. Assuming John, who's lounging there, will take care of her, I steel myself to speak with Rachel. John and I adore Aydah, but having her over every week is becoming a bit overwhelming. Even though we work from home, I'm an illustrator and John is a programmer. We're both freelancers. As freelancers, we have the flexibility to adjust our schedules based on our workload, but it's challenging to juggle childcare during busy periods. However, ensuring our niece's safety is our top priority, so I find myself multitasking, working on my tablet while keeping a watchful eye on her. I feel guilty for voicing my concerns to Rachel, my brother's wife, fearing it might strain their relationship, but the burden has become too heavy to bear. I'm truly sorry, but could today be the last day we watch Aydah? I ask her gently. It's only later that I realize my mistake. She arches her eyebrows and sharply rebukes me. You wouldn't understand, Ashley, not having children of your own. Raising kids is incredibly tough. You can't possibly comprehend the challenges we face with Aydah. Her words pierce my heart like daggers. It's because I'm infertile, I confess, feeling the weight of the admission. John and I have always dreamed of having children. We talked about it before we got married. But despite our efforts, we couldn't conceive. After seeking medical advice, we learned about my condition, which makes pregnancy extremely difficult. We're currently undergoing fertility treatments, which are physically taxing and financially draining. Each month, the hopeful anticipation of starting a family brings immense emotional stress for both John and me. Being blamed for not understanding the challenges of parenthood strikes a painful chord, especially amidst our struggles. But her accusations don't cease. Unlike you two who stay cooped up at home, I'm a sociable person. I have many friends who depend on me. Today, I brought Aydah here because I'm heading to London to visit a friend. You two, who lead reclusive lives and don't contribute to society, should be grateful that I'm doing you a favor too. If you understand, take good care of Aydah and stop complaining. After Rachel's heated departure, her scent lingering in the air, I re-enter the living room. John, evidently privy to the confrontation, wears an unusual frown. I didn't want Aydah to witness all that, that's why I stayed back. But that was too much, he remarks, his tone edged with irritation. It's been roughly a month since little Aydah began her weekly visits. Sensing it's time to address the situation, I resolve to call my brother Chris. Hey Chris. Hey Ashley. What's going on? It's been a while. Everything alright? I had been pondering Chris's decision to leave Aydah with us. Despite his usual demeanor over the phone, my recent clash with Rachel left me on edge. So, with a hint of frustration, I broached the subject. Hey bro, Aydah is adorable and all, but having her over every week is becoming quite the challenge. John and I have deadlines to meet as freelancers, you know? Some consideration would be appreciated. Ha! Aydah? She's sleeping right now, he responded. Confusion set in as Chris claimed Aydah was at home sleeping. When he sent a photo of Aydah asleep, it didn't match the Aydah we knew. I countered with a picture of Aydah playing with John, to which he asked, "Who's that girl?" The last time I saw Aydah with Chris, she was still a baby, unable to walk. The realization hit me that the child regularly left in our care, supposedly Aydah, might not actually be her. But then, why would Rachel bring her over? Chris and I exchanged puzzled looks. Suddenly, John, who had been silently absorbing our conversation, tentatively addressed Chris. Chris, I apologize if I'm mistaken and I know this might be impolite, but have you noticed anything odd about Rachel lately? John and I had discussed it numerous times. Rachel's behavior had changed noticeably since her parents passed away from illness. Family gatherings ceased altogether. The last time I saw Rachel a few years ago, she was still attractive but dressed more modestly. Recently, however, she's been donning vibrant colors like red and blue and flaunting flashy accessories. Chris appeared to have picked up on these changes too, his response tinged with a hint of melancholy. Yeah, maybe, he admitted before abruptly ending the call with a promise to follow up later. While we sympathized with Chris's situation, John and I couldn't shake the suspicion that Rachel might be unfaithful. There was little we could do about her possible infidelity other than trust Chris to handle it. Our focus shifted to uncovering the identity of the cheerful girl playing before us. Aydah, you're 3 years old, aren't you? Can you tell us your name? We had always assumed she was our niece, never bothering to confirm her name. But if she wasn't Aydah, we needed to know. My heart racing, I questioned the girl, who responded with a beaming smile. I'm Aydah Johnson. I'm 3 years old. After a brief exchange of glances with John, we praised little Aydah, trying to maintain our composure. You said that perfectly, we chimed in, hoping to conceal our unease. We carried on as usual, not wanting Aydah to sense our apprehension. The surname Johnson was unfamiliar to us, leaving us uncertain of the child's origin. Despite our confusion, it was evident that little Aydah was innocent in all of this. Hoping to aid my brother in his investigation, I messaged him on WhatsApp, informing him that the girl with us was Aydah Johnson. His reply was curt, "Understood, thanks." Later that afternoon, my brother showed up at our doorstep with another person in tow. Sorry to impose, but I need to discuss something with Rachel when she comes to collect Aydah. Would you mind if we wait here? He inquired, and I readily consented, still harboring resentment toward Rachel for betraying my brother. As the evening slipped into night, Rachel stumbled into our home, clearly intoxicated. I'm back, Peter. I'm here to take you home, she slurred, oblivious to the impending tempest. As Rachel casually strolled back, seemingly on the verge of breaking, I greeted her with a forced smile. Hey, welcome back, Rachel. You seem a bit tipsy. How about I get you some water? That'd be great. Is this your way of making up for the nonsense you spouted earlier? As Rachel entered the living room, her usual cheerful demeanor contrasting with her slightly inebriated state, Aydah was engrossed in play on the lap of a woman. Rachel glanced at the scene with confusion, noticing the woman's disapproving glare. Who's that? Did you hire a sitter? Nice to meet you. I'm Katie Johnson, Aydah's mom. What? Rachel's surprise was so profound she couldn't even grasp the glass of water I offered, stumbling backward until she collided with a corner and tumbled to the floor. I watched her sprawled there, offering no assistance, when my brother's voice echoed from the entrance. I've brought him. Why is Chris here too? Rachel, still on the floor, exclaimed as my brother ushered in a man with flamboyantly colored hair. Rachel blanched at the sight of the man, and he paled upon seeing Katie. My brother directed Rachel and the unfamiliar man to sit beside each other. Though unbidden, they both attempted to straighten up, but their posture remained uneasy, their eyes darting about with evident unease. Because it wasn't suitable to subject a child to such a tense situation, John, who had been entertaining Aydah in the adjacent room, whisked her away. With everyone assembled, my brother assumed command, fixing his gaze on Rachel and the man. I never thought my close friend would betray me with my wife. Isn't that right? No? No. An acquaintance from Chris's high school years still kept in touch and occasionally visited Chris's home. Chris had always felt uneasy about the way Noah looked at Rachel. I always figured if Rachel was going to stray, it'd be with you. But to find out it's actually you, and you have the nerve to leave your own kid with my sister and her husband. What the hell, man? Chris, once a notorious troublemaker in their small Nebraska town, had since settled into a corporate job, but his confrontational side resurfaced when he faced Noah. At Chris's chilling accusation, Noah let out a pitiful scream. Oh no, he replied in a trembling voice before continuing. It was Rachel who initiated everything. She sought me out at my salon, specifically asking for me. She confessed she had feelings for me. You can't just put this all on me. You were just as involved. You two morons. The first thing you need to do is apologize. Chris's words prompted Rachel and Noah to start apologizing, or so I assumed. However, it became clear that Noah, who could calmly leave his daughter with strangers, wasn't operating on a normal wavelength. Noah, pointing at the tearful Katie, raised his voice. It's all her fault. She barely pays attention to me, so I felt lonely and cheated. If anyone's to blame, it's Katie. Don't you dare deflect. Katie's sudden outburst startled Noah. When Chris brought her closer, she exuded quiet elegance. I never imagined my husband would entrust Aydah to strangers while I'm at work. I'm deeply sorry. The usually humble Katie's fury was palpable. What do you mean you cheated because you felt lonely? Have you no self-control? And leaving Aydah with strangers. Why would you do such a thing? Katie's frustration was evident, and it's because Rachel mentioned her sister-in-law and her husband are childless with nothing but time on their hands. So they're a convenient option, right? But we may not have kids, but we work from home. We're not babysitters. I told Rachel this morning. We're struggling. We never imagined you were using us to care for your mistress's child as if it were your own. But is that okay? Maybe I'll be blamed for cheating, but I've just shown a childless couple what it's like to have kids. What? The voice that escaped, resonating deep like Chris's, drew my attention to Rachel, who bore a striking resemblance to her partner. She uttered a pitiful, "Oh no," before erupting. "This is none of your business, adults. We've been struggling to conceive. You were aware of that, weren't you? Your constant insensitive remarks have been infuriating. But I tolerated them because you're Chris's wife. Not anymore. Let me make it clear, you're incredibly rude. Bringing the stranger's child into our home without permission, and your garish makeup that doesn't suit your age, your overpowering perfume." When I finally voiced my long-held thoughts, Rachel flushed crimson, realizing she had no ground left to stand on. She bit her lip, remaining silent. Following that, Chris and Katie delivered a thorough scolding to Rachel and Noah. Predictably, both couples ended up divorcing, facing substantial financial burdens. Chris spread the news of Noah's affair with Rachel to his friends in Nebraska, and the gossip soon reached Noah's local hair salon. Noah, now the talk of the town, found himself unemployed after being fired. Rachel, previously a homemaker, struggled to secure employment, lacking work experience since she became a housewife straight out of college. Unsurprisingly, her job hunt proved arduous. Upon discovering her infidelity, Rachel's parents disowned her, leaving her to scrape by with sporadic odd jobs. Both Rachel and Noah lost not only their jobs but also their families due to their indiscretions, finding themselves in a pitiable state. To my surprise, fertility treatments proved successful for me. I'm pregnant, and guess what? We're expecting twins. John and I couldn't hold back tears of joy as we eagerly anticipate the arrival of our babies. We still maintain close ties with Aydah and Katie, with whom we share a unique bond. Aydah and Arnis Aydah get along famously, often playing joyfully together. They even lovingly touch my belly, addressing the babies with, "Let's play together once you're born," which melts my heart. Despite my brother Chris and Katie being betrayed by their partners, they've committed to raising their children as single parents. John and I stand ready to assist in any way necessary. The four of us, John, Chris, Katie, and myself, have made a pact to collaborate in raising our niece Aydah and the twins on the way, forging a resilient bond between us.
I should have known something was wrong when my brother couldn't stop smirking during Mom's famous pot roast dinner. That stupid grin of his always meant trouble was coming, but this time, he'd gone too far. I'm Taylor, and at 28, I thought I'd seen all of Zane's hilarious pranks. Growing up as his little sister meant being his favorite target, but usually I could laugh it off. Not tonight. Tonight changed everything. "So," Zane announced, tapping his wine glass with his fork. The whole family looked up. Mom, Aunt Rachel, our family friend Annika, and my best friend Quentin, who I'd invited for moral support. "I have a confession to make." Mom beamed at him like she always did. "What is it, sweetie?" "Remember last month when Taylor was complaining about her medication not working?" He paused for dramatic effect and my stomach dropped. "Well, I might have switched her pills with sugar tablets. Just to see what would happen." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before Mom burst out laughing. "Oh, Zane, you didn't." "I did." He was practically bouncing in his chair. I mean, come on, it was pretty funny watching her get all worked up about nothing. My hands started shaking under the table. Those pills were for my chronic migraines, the ones that left me curled up in darkness for days, the ones that made me miss work twice last month because I couldn't function. "That's not funny," Aunt Rachel said slowly, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "Those are prescription medications." "Oh, please." Mom waved her hand dismissively. Taylor's always been dramatic about her headaches. A little placebo effect probably did her good. I felt Quentin's hand squeeze my knee under the table. When I looked at him, his face was tight with anger. So that's why I was in excruciating pain for weeks. My voice came out steadier than I expected. That's why I almost lost my job? Zane rolled his eyes. Come on, sis. It was just a joke. A joke? I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. I ended up in the ER, Zane. Remember that? Or were you too busy laughing about your brilliant prank? Taylor, honey, sit down, Mom said, still fighting back giggles. You're making a scene. I looked around the table. Aunt Rachel was shaking her head in disgust. Annika was staring at her plate, clearly uncomfortable. Only Quentin met my eyes, giving me a slight nod of support. Making a scene? I grabbed my water glass, my hand trembling. You want to see a scene? Taylor, Quentin warned softly. I set the glass down, hard. Water sloshed onto the pristine tablecloth, making Mom gasp. You know what? I stood up. I'm done. I'm done with your pranks, Zane. I'm done with you laughing them off, Mom. And I'm especially done with being the family joke. Oh, don't be so sensitive, Zane called after me as I headed for the door. It's not like you died or anything. I stopped at the doorway, my eyes falling on Mom's prized collection of glass elephant figurines, the ones she'd inherited from Grandma, the ones she loved more than anything, maybe even more than her own children. No, I didn't die, I said quietly, but something will. What's that supposed to mean? Mom asked, finally sounding worried. I turned back to face them, forcing a smile. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Enjoy your dinner. As I walked out, I heard Aunt Rachel's voice. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Quentin caught up with me in the driveway. Taylor, wait. Did you see them? I was pacing, my hands clenched into fists. Did you see how they laughed? He grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to stop. I saw, and it was messed up, but what are you going to do? I looked back at the house, at the window where Mom's elephant collection caught the evening light. 32 pieces of pristine crystal, each one worth a small fortune, each one irreplaceable. I don't know yet, I said, but those elephants have been watching this family's drama for 3 generations. Maybe it's time they did more than just watch. Quentin's eyes widened slightly. Taylor, don't worry, I said, already feeling calmer as a plan started forming in my mind. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to make sure karma does its job. As we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of the elephants in my rearview mirror. They'd always seemed so delicate, so precious. Mom spent hours arranging them just right, making sure each one caught the light perfectly. Well, Mom, I thought, let's see how you like it when something precious gets taken away from you. 3 days after the dinner disaster, I was back at Mom's house, pretending everything was normal. The elephants glinted in the afternoon sun as I helped her with the dishes, their crystal bodies casting rainbow patterns on the wall. I just don't understand why you're still upset, Mom said, handing me a plate to dry. Zane apologized. No, he didn't. I set the plate down harder than necessary. He texted sorry or mad lol with a crying laughing emoji. That's not an apology. Well, you know how he is? She scrubbed at a pot that was already clean. He means well. From the living room, I heard Zane's voice. Hey, Mom, where's that photo album from Taylor's middle school years? The one with her braces phase? Top shelf, honey, Mom called back cheerfully. I gripped the dish towel tighter. Let me guess, he's going to scan those and post them online? Oh, Taylor. Mom flicked water at me playfully. He's just being a big brother. A big brother who tampered with my medication. I stepped away from the sink. Do you even realize how serious that was? I could have pressed charges. Mom's face darkened. Don't you dare threaten your brother. Of course. I laughed bitterly. Protect precious Zane. Who cares if your daughter ends up in the hospital? Found it. Zane's triumphant voice carried through the house. Oh man, these are gold. I walked to the living room, where he sat sprawled on the couch, flipping through my awkward teenage years. He looked up with that same smirk from dinner. Remember when you had that massive zit at graduation? I think that's in here somewhere. You know what I remember? I stood over him. I remember last month, lying in a dark room for 3 days straight because my medication had mysteriously stopped working. He rolled his eyes. Are you still on about that? Still on about... I snatched the album from his hands. Yes, I'm still on about that, because while you were having your little laugh, I was missing work, throwing up from pain, and wondering why my prescribed medication wasn't helping. Taylor! Mom rushed in. Give your brother back the album. I held it behind my back. Why, so he can humiliate me some more? It's just pictures. Zane stood up, reaching for the album. Don't be such a drama queen. Drama queen? My voice cracked. You messed with my health, Zane. My actual health. Do you know what it's like to feel like your head is splitting open? To not be able to look at light without wanting to scream? I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. You've never been sorry for anything you've done to me. The album fell forgotten as we faced each other. Behind Zane, the elephant collection watched silently, their crystal faces unchanging. One particular piece caught my eye. A baby elephant with its trunk raised, supposedly for good luck. Mom had always said it was the most valuable. You want to know what your joke cost me? I pulled out my phone, pulling up my banking app. Here's the ER bill, $2,800. Want to help pay for that? Zane barely glanced at the screen. That's not my problem. Exactly. I put my phone away. Nothing ever is. Both of you, stop it. Mom stepped between us. Taylor, you're being ridiculous. Zane didn't mean any harm. He never does, I said quietly, but he always causes it anyway. I turned to leave, but Zane's voice stopped me. Where are you going? To cry to Quentin about how mean we are? No. I looked back at the elephants, particularly at that lucky baby one. I'm going to do what you taught me, Zane. I'm going to have some fun. What's that supposed to mean? Mom asked, suddenly protective. Of the wrong thing, as usual. Nothing. I smiled, the same way Zane did before his pranks. Just that maybe it's time I developed a sense of humor too. As I left, I heard Mom comforting Zane, telling him I'd get over it eventually. She had no idea that I already had something better in mind. Getting over it wasn't the plan anymore. I pulled out my phone and dialed Annika's number. She answered on the second ring. Taylor, are you okay? Remember how you mentioned being an auctioneer? I asked, starting my car. I have a question about crystal figurines. The elephants? She sounded hesitant. Your mother's collection? Yeah. I pulled out of the driveway, watching the house shrink in my mirror. How much do you think they're worth? There was a pause. Taylor, are you sure about this? Absolutely. I smiled as Mom's house disappeared from view. It's time for a little karma, and those elephants, they're going to help deliver it. Aunt Rachel's kitchen always smelled like cinnamon and coffee, a combination that usually calmed my nerves. Today, though, not even her famous snickerdoodles could settle the storm in my stomach. He did what? She slammed her coffee mug down, sloshing hot liquid onto her pristine countertop. Switched your medication? I nodded, watching her face turn red with anger. Mom thought it was hilarious. Of course she did. Aunt Rachel grabbed a dish towel, wiping up the spill with sharp, angry movements. Morgan always lets that boy get away with murder. But this... She shook her head. This is criminal, Taylor. Literally criminal. I know. I picked at a cookie, crumbs scattering across the plate. But pressing charges would destroy the family. The family? She barked out a laugh. Honey, they're doing a fine job of that all by themselves. My phone buzzed. A text from Annika. Research done. Collection worth minimum $50K. Some pieces much more. Call me. Aunt Rachel caught my expression. What is it? I hesitated, then showed her the text. Her eyebrows shot up. The elephants? She whistled low. I always knew they were valuable, but I'm going to sell them, I said quietly. All of them. She sat down heavily across from me. Taylor, before you try to talk me out of it, I'm not. She reached across the table, gripping my hand. I'm going to help you. I blinked. What? Those elephants? She squeezed my hand. They've been watching this family's dysfunction for decades. Your grandmother, my mother, she wouldn't have wanted them used as props in Morgan's shrine to denial. My phone rang. Annika again. I answered on speaker. Taylor? Annika's voice filled the kitchen. I've been making calls. There's an auction next month focusing on crystal collections. Very exclusive. The timing couldn't be better. Aunt Rachel leaned forward. Annika, it's Rachel. How would you handle the logistics? Rachel! Annika sounded relieved. Good, you're there. Look, I can arrange everything. Private viewing, authenticated documentation, the works. But Taylor, she paused. Are you absolutely sure about this? I thought about Zane's smirk, Mom's dismissive laugh, the way they both treated my pain like a punchline. I'm sure, but I have one condition. I took a deep breath. Whatever money we make, I want it donated to the women's health clinic downtown, the one that helps people who can't afford medical care. Silence filled the line. Then Annika laughed. That's actually perfect. Poetic justice, Aunt Rachel murmured, a small smile playing on her lips. Okay. Annika's voice turned businesslike. Here's what we need to do. A knock at the door interrupted her. Aunt Rachel went to check, then came back looking worried. It's Quentin, she whispered. I quickly switched off speaker. Annika, I'll call you back. Quentin walked in, looking concerned. Your mom called me. She's worried about you. Of course she is. I rolled my eyes. Now that I'm not playing along with Zane's jokes, suddenly I'm the problem. He sat down, stealing a cookie. She said you seemed different, planning something. Maybe I am. I met his eyes. Would that be so wrong? He studied me for a long moment. The elephants? How did you... The way you looked at them before we left. He shrugged. I know that look, Taylor. It's the same one Zane gets before a prank. This isn't a prank. I leaned forward. This is justice. Through revenge? Through consequences. Aunt Rachel cut in. There's a difference. Quentin looked between us, then slowly nodded. Okay. What do you need from me? Really? I hadn't expected him to agree so easily. Really? He grabbed another cookie. They crossed a line, Taylor. Way over it. And sometimes... He glanced at the family photos on Aunt Rachel's wall, at the years of memories and moments. Sometimes family needs a wake-up call. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Annika. Auction house very interested. Need items within 2 weeks. Possible? I looked at the 3 people in the kitchen. My aunt, my best friend, and through the phone, Annika, my own personal karma crew. 2 weeks, I said, feeling stronger than I had in months. We can do that. Aunt Rachel stood up, determination written across her face. Well then, let's start planning. Those elephants aren't going to liberate themselves. As we gathered around her table, plotting the details, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time since that dinner, I wasn't a victim of Zane's cruelty or Mom's enablement. I was the one in control. And those elephants? They were about to trumpet a message my family would never forget. Mom's hosting bridge club tonight, I said, checking my watch. She'll be gone for at least 3 hours. Quentin pulled his car into the shadows 2 houses down from Mom's. And you're sure about the alarm code? 4782, Zane's birth year. I rolled my eyes, because obviously he's the golden child. We waited until Mom's car disappeared around the corner, her bridge club friends chattering loudly as they drove away. The house sat dark and quiet, except for the porch light she always left on. Ready? Quentin squeezed my shoulder. I nodded, gripping my spare key. Aunt Rachel's waiting with Annika at the storage unit. We moved quickly across the lawn, my heart pounding with each step. The key slid in smoothly, and I punched in the alarm code with trembling fingers. Green light. We were in. The elephants gleamed in the darkness, 32 pairs of crystal eyes watching our every move. I pulled out the padded boxes we'd brought, laying them on the dining room table. Start with the small ones, I whispered, though we were alone. They're in the front. Quentin worked methodically, wrapping each piece in bubble wrap while I documented them with my phone's camera. Each elephant had its own story, its own memory. The baby one from my 5th birthday, the mother and child pair from Mom's wedding. Taylor? Quentin's voice was soft. You okay? I realized I was holding Grandma's favorite, a majestic bull elephant with its trunk raised high, the last piece she'd added to the collection before she died. She left these to Mom because she thought they'd be safe, I said, carefully wrapping it. She never knew what this family would become. Hey. Quentin stopped working. We can still... No. I placed the elephant in its box. We can't. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Rachel. Bridge club spotted at Carol's house. All clear here. We worked faster. 20 minutes later, all 32 elephants were packed and ready. The display cabinet looked startlingly empty, like a mouth missing all its teeth. Last chance, Quentin said as we carried the boxes to his car. I took one final look at the house. Through the window, I could see the empty cabinet, and for a moment I remembered all the times Mom had let me help clean them. How proud she'd been of each piece. how she'd tell their stories over and over. Then I remembered her laugh at dinner, the way she dismissed my pain, protected Zane instead of me. Let's go. The drive to the storage unit was tense. Every car behind us looked like Mom's. Every red light felt like an eternity. But finally, we pulled up to find Aunt Rachel and Annika waiting. Everything okay? Aunt Rachel asked, helping us unload. Perfect. I handed Annika the first box. They're all here. Annika opened it carefully, lifting out the baby elephant. Oh my. These are even more beautiful than I remembered. The auction house will be thrilled. When? I asked. They're sending a courier tomorrow. She examined another piece. The auction's in 3 weeks. These will be the centerpiece. 3 weeks? My stomach lurched. Mom will notice them missing way before then. That's the point, isn't it? Aunt Rachel said, arranging the boxes in the storage unit. Let her feel what it's like to lose something precious. My phone lit up. A text from Mom. Bridge club ended early. Carol's husband had an emergency. Coming home now. Want to stop by for tea? She's heading home, I said, my voice shaking. Quentin checked his watch. We got out just in time. We finished storing the elephants, each box carefully labeled and documented. Annika promised to handle everything with the auction house. Aunt Rachel hugged me tight before leaving. Your grandmother would be proud, she whispered. Sometimes love means standing up for yourself. Back in Quentin's car, my phone started ringing. Mom's face lit up the screen. Here we go, I muttered, declining the call. Another text popped up. Taylor, the elephants are gone. Someone broke in. Call me now. Then another, did you take them? Please tell me you didn't. And another, your brother is furious. What have you done? I turned off my phone. You know there's no going back now, Quentin said quietly as we drove away. I watched the storage unit disappear in the side mirror, thinking about those 32 elephants, each one wrapped in bubble wrap and waiting to serve a greater purpose than just sitting in Mom's display case. Good, I said, because I'm done going backward. From now on, we're only moving forward. The night wrapped around us like a blanket as we drove home, and somewhere in the darkness, I swear I could hear the faint trumpet of elephants, cheering me on. The auction house buzzed with quiet energy. Well-dressed people milled around, sipping champagne and examining the displays. Mom's elephants sat center stage, each one catching the light exactly the way she used to arrange them. Bidding starts in 10 minutes, Annika whispered, appearing at my elbow. Are you sure you want to stay and watch? I nodded, clutching my auction paddle like a shield. I need to see this through. My phone had been exploding for the past 3 weeks. Mom's messages ranged from desperate pleas to angry threats. Zane had left exactly one voicemail. You've lost your mind, you know that? Look, Quentin nudged me, pointing to a woman examining the baby elephant. She's from the Women's Clinic Board. The woman held up the piece, admiring how it caught the light. I'd done my research. She had the funds to make a serious bid. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer's voice boomed through the room. Please take your seats. We're about to begin. Aunt Rachel squeezed my hand as we sat down. Remember, whatever happens, you're doing the right thing. The first few lots went quickly. Antique vases, rare books, vintage jewelry. Then, Lot 47, the Eleanor Holmes Crystal Elephant Collection. 32 pieces, mint condition, with full documentation of provenance. Opening bid at $50,000. A paddle went up immediately. Then another. And another. 60,000. 75. 80,000. My heart raced as the numbers climbed. The woman from the women's clinic kept bidding, her face determined. $120,000, she called out clearly. The room fell silent. The auctioneer looked around. Going once? My phone buzzed. Mom again. The police are involved now. You've gone too far. Going twice. Another paddle rose. 150,000. The clinic board member didn't hesitate. 175. 200,000. The other bidder countered. I held my breath. The clinic member consulted briefly with her colleague, then shook her head. She was out. 200,000 going once. Aunt Rachel gripped my arm. Taylor? Going twice. I raised my paddle. 250,000. Gasps rippled through the room. Annika's eyes widened. The other bidder turned to look at me, then slowly lowered their paddle. Sold, The gavel cracked like thunder. To paddle number 47. Taylor, Quentin hissed. What are you doing? I stood up, my legs shaking. Excuse me, I called out. I'd like to donate this entire collection to the Downtown Women's Health Clinic in honor of my grandmother Eleanor Holmes. The room erupted in applause. The clinic board member rushed over, tears in her eyes. This is incredible, she stammered. The clinic has been struggling to stay open. This will fund our operations for years. Cameras flashed. Someone from the local paper appeared, asking for a statement. Through it all, my phone kept buzzing. Finally, I answered it. Where are they? Mom's voice was hoarse. Taylor, please. Turn on Channel 7 tonight, I said calmly. You'll see exactly where your precious elephants ended up. They weren't mine to sell? Her voice cracked. How could you? How could I? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. How could you laugh when Zane put my health at risk? How could you dismiss my pain? Those elephants are going to help people now, Mom. People like me, who need medical care they can't afford. Silence filled the line. Then quietly, Zane's here. He wants to talk to you. No. I watched as the clinic staff carefully packed up the elephants. I'm done talking. It's time for you both to listen. I hung up as reporters gathered around. Ms. Holmes, can you tell us what inspired this generous donation? Looking straight into the cameras, knowing Mom and Zane would see this later, I smiled. Sometimes, I said clearly, the best way to heal is to help others heal too. These elephants have been silent witnesses to family drama for too long. Now they're going to be part of something bigger, something that actually matters. Aunt Rachel appeared beside me, her arm around my shoulders. And sometimes, she added, karma needs a little help finding its way. Later, as we watched the elephants being loaded into the clinic's van, Quentin handed me a cookie. Snickerdoodle? He grinned. Aunt Rachel stress-baked all morning. I took it, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. You know what's funny? I actually feel sorry for them now. Why? Because they'll never understand what they did wrong. I brushed crumbs from my dress. But at least now, every time they think about those elephants, they'll remember that actions have consequences. And karma, Aunt Rachel added, has a way of coming back around. We watched the van drive away, 32 crystal elephants heading toward their new purpose. Behind us, my phone stayed silent, and for the first time in weeks, that silence felt like victory. 1 week after the auction, Mom insisted on another family dinner. To talk things through, she'd said. I knew better. This was an ambush. I arrived last, walking into a tension so thick you could cut it with one of Mom's fancy butter knives. The empty display cabinet loomed in the corner like a missing tooth in an otherwise perfect smile. Well, Zane drawled from his seat. Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. Zane, Mom warned, but her tone lacked conviction. She bustled around, setting down a casserole. Taylor, honey, sit down. I made your favorite. Tuna casserole stopped being my favorite when I was 12, I said, taking the seat furthest from them. But you'd know that if you ever actually listened to me. Aunt Rachel, bless her, had positioned herself between me and them. Quentin sat on my other side, a solid wall of support. I saw you on the news, Zane said, stabbing his fork into his food. Real dramatic performance. Did you enjoy destroying Mom's inheritance? About as much as you enjoyed destroying my health. I smiled sweetly. Pass the salt? Mom's hand shook as she passed the shaker. Taylor, we need to talk about what you did. Funny. I sprinkled salt on my food. That's exactly what I wanted to do after Zane's little prank. But nobody seemed interested then. That was different, Mom protested. How? I set down my fork. How exactly was it different? Because it was just a joke, Zane exploded. This was theft. No, Aunt Rachel cut in. This was consequences, something you've managed to avoid your entire life, Zane. Stay out of this, Rachel, Mom snapped. Why should she? I asked. She's the only one who's been honest about this family's problems. Problems, Mom's voice rose. We don't have problems. We had a beautiful collection of family heirlooms that you sold out of spite. Sold, I laughed. No, Mom, I didn't sell them. I donated them to help people who can't afford medical care. You know, like when I couldn't afford my ER visit after Zane's hilarious medication swap? The room fell silent. Even Zane had the decency to look uncomfortable. $250,000, I continued. That's how much those elephants were worth. That money is going to help people get the medical care they need. People who won't have to wonder if their family members switched their medication for fun. I said I was sorry, Zane muttered. No, you didn't. I slammed my hand on the table. You never did. You sent a text with laughing emojis. Taylor. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. We can fix this. We can buy them back. They're not for sale. I stood up. They belong to the clinic now. And you know what? Grandma would have been proud. Don't you dare bring your grandmother into this. Mom's face reddened. Why not? They were her elephants first, and she believed in helping people, in doing what's right, unlike some people in this family. Zane stood up too. You want to talk about doing what's right? How about respecting family property? How about respecting your sister's health? Quentin spoke up for the first time. How about not treating someone's medical condition like a joke? This isn't about you, Zane snapped at him. No, I agreed. It's about accountability, something this family seems allergic to. Mom started crying, real tears this time, not the manipulative ones I'd seen so often. Those elephants were all I had left of your grandmother. No, Mom, I softened my voice. You had me. You had a daughter who needed your support, your protection, but you chose to laugh instead. I didn't. She trailed off, realization finally dawning in her eyes. Didn't what? I pressed. Didn't think? Didn't care? Which is it? The silence stretched out, broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. Finally, Zane spoke, his voice unusually quiet. I really messed up, didn't I? Yeah, I said. You did. And now those elephants are going to help fix what you broke, not just for me, but for others too. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, Mom called out, Where are you going? To the clinic, I said without turning around. They're having a dedication ceremony for the new Eleanor Holmes Medical Assistance Fund. You're welcome to come, but only if you're ready to actually listen. As I walked out, I heard Aunt Rachel's chair scrape back. Then Quentin's. Their footsteps followed me down the hallway. The empty display cabinet caught the evening light one last time as I left, its glass shelves now serving as mirrors, reflecting back the truth this family had avoided for so long. Sometimes the biggest statements are made in empty spaces. The clinic's conference room buzzed with activity as staff arranged chairs and hung a banner reading, Eleanor Holmes Medical Assistance Fund. The elephants stood proudly in a new display case, catching the afternoon sun just like they used to in Mom's house. Taylor? Dr. Sarah, the clinic director, touched my arm. We're ready to begin if you'd like to say a few words. I nodded, adjusting my note cards. The room was packed. Clinic staff, local media, even some former patients. Aunt Rachel and Quentin sat in the front row, beaming. Then the door opened. Mom walked in, followed by Zane. They looked smaller somehow, less certain. Mom's eyes immediately found the elephants, and I saw her hands clench into fists before relaxing. I didn't think you'd come, I said as they approached. We almost didn't, Zane admitted, but then we saw the news report about what this fund will do. Before I could respond, Dr. Sarah called everyone to attention. Welcome, everyone. Today marks a new chapter for our clinic. I half-listened as she explained the fund's purpose, helping patients afford crucial medications, treatments, and emergency care. My eyes kept drifting to Mom and Zane, watching their reactions. And now, Dr. Sarah smiled, I'd like to introduce Taylor Holmes, whose generous donation made this possible. The room applauded as I stepped up to the podium. My prepared speech felt wrong suddenly, so I set the cards aside. 3 months ago, I began, someone switched my medication with sugar pills as a joke. I looked directly at Zane. I ended up in the ER, unable to afford the treatment I needed. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her seat. But this isn't about revenge, I continued. It's about transformation. These elephants watched our family for 3 generations. Now they're going to watch over people who need help, who need hope. I gestured to the display case. My grandmother collected these because she believed beautiful things should serve a purpose. Today, they'll help ensure that no one has to choose between medical care and paying their rent. No one has to suffer because they can't afford their medication. Zane's face had gone pale. Mom was crying silently. The Eleanor Holmes Fund will provide assistance to hundreds of patients every year, And every time someone receives help, these elephants will be here, reminding us that sometimes the most valuable things we own are worth more when we give them away. The applause was thunderous. Dr. Sarah announced that the fund had already helped 3 patients this week. As people mingled afterward, Zane approached me. "Can we talk?" He looked different, humbled. "Please." We moved to a quiet corner. Mom joined us, her makeup streaked with tears. "I get it now," Zane said quietly. "What I did, it wasn't just a prank. I could have killed you." "Yes," I said. "You could have." And Mom's voice cracked. "I enabled it. All these years I laughed it off, made excuses." She touched my arm hesitantly. "I failed you, Taylor." "You did," I agreed. "Both of you did." "The elephants," Zane gestured to the display. "Grandma would have approved, wouldn't she?" "She would have done it herself," Aunt Rachel said, joining us. "Morgan, remember how she volunteered at the free clinic every Wednesday?" Mom nodded, wiping her eyes. "I forgot that. I forgot a lot of things, it seems." "I'm sorry," Zane said suddenly. "Really sorry. Not with emojis or excuses, just sorry." "Me too," Mom added. "I know it's not enough, but it's a start," I cut in. "A real start this time." Dr. Sarah appeared with a patient, a young woman about my age. "Taylor, this is Jessica. She received her migraine medication today, thanks to the fund." Jessica hugged me impulsively. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've been choosing between medicine and groceries for months." I hugged her back, feeling Zane and Mom watching. As Jessica walked away, Zane cleared his throat. "How much?" He swallowed hard. "How much does the fund need to help more people like her?" "Are you serious?" I asked. He pulled out his checkbook. "Dead serious. It's time I grew up, right?" Mom reached for her purse, too. "Count me in." I watched them write their checks, larger amounts than I expected. As they handed them to Dr. Sarah, I felt something shift in the air, like the last piece of a puzzle falling into place. Behind us, the elephants stood guard, their crystal forms catching and reflecting the light, transforming it into something new and beautiful, just like us. "So," Aunt Rachel said, putting her arms around me, "was it worth it?" I looked at my family, really looked at them, and saw change where there used to be denial, understanding where there used to be dismissal. "Yeah," I said, "it was worth every penny." "Ready for this?" Quentin asked as we pulled up to Mom's house for Sunday dinner. I nodded, clutching the small gift bag in my lap. Through the window, I could see Mom setting the table. No fancy china this time, just regular plates. Progress. Inside, the empty display cabinet was gone. In its place stood a small table with a single crystal elephant, not from the original collection, but a new one Zane had found at an antique shop. "Taylor!" Mom hurried over, hugging me. "I made lasagna, real lasagna, not tuna casserole." "You remembered?" I said, surprised. "I'm trying to." She squeezed my hand. "Really trying." Zane emerged from the kitchen, wearing an apron and carrying a salad bowl. "Hey sis, you're just in time. I only burned the garlic bread a little." "You cooked?" "Taking a cooking class," he shrugged. "Turns out there are better hobbies than pranking your sister." We settled around the table, the conversation flowing easier than it had in years. No forced laughter, no tense undercurrents. Just family, finding their way back to each other. "Before we eat," I said, pulling out the gift bag, "I have something for you both." Mom and Zane exchanged glances as I handed them each an envelope. "What's this?" Mom asked, opening hers. "Read it out loud," I suggested. She cleared her throat. "Dear Mrs. Holmes, thanks to your recent donation to the Eleanor Holmes Fund, we were able to provide emergency medication to twins Sarah and Samuel, age 6. Their mother wrote, 'I can finally sleep at night knowing my babies can breathe properly.'" "There's a picture." Mom's voice cracked as she looked at the photo of 2 smiling children holding their inhalers. Zane opened his envelope next. "Your contribution helped Janet, age 29, receive critical migraine treatment. She's now back at work and able to support her family." He looked up at me. "You're keeping track?" "The clinic sends monthly updates about who the fund helps." I smiled. "I thought you'd want to know what those elephants are doing now." "There's more," Quentin said, nodding at the gift bag. Mom reached in and pulled out a small photo album. On the cover was a picture of the elephant collection in its new home at the clinic. "Open it," I urged. She did. Inside were photos of people, patients, doctors, families, all standing near the elephant display. Each photo had a story. Medications provided, treatments funded, lives changed. "This is what Grandma's legacy really looks like," I said softly. "Not just beautiful things behind glass, but real help for real people." Zane wiped his eyes quickly. I, actually have something too." He disappeared into the kitchen, returning with an envelope of his own. "I registered for a pharmacy technician program." "What?" I stared at him. "Yeah, well," he shuffled his feet. "After everything, I want to help people get the right medications, make sure they're safe. Maybe work at the clinic someday." Mom stood up suddenly, walking to the single elephant on display. "Your grandmother used to say that beautiful things should have beautiful purposes." She turned back to us. I think we finally understood what she meant. "We did," I agreed, though it took some tough love to get there. "About that," Zane said, "I know we've apologized, but I want you to know. I think about what I did every day. Every time I read about someone the fund helps, I remember how close I came to really hurting you." "I know." I reached across the table, taking his hand. "That's why I forgive you, both of you." Mom joined us, placing her hand over ours. "We don't deserve it." "Maybe not," I said. "But forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about growing, and you both have grown so much. Thanks to you," Zane added, "and those elephants." Speaking of which, Quentin pulled out his phone, showing us the clinic's latest post. They just helped their 100th patient this month. We raised our glasses. Water for me, since I was back on my proper medication, wine for the others. "To the elephants," Mom said. "To growth," Zane added. "To family," Aunt Rachel chimed in from the doorway, arriving right on time with dessert. "To all of it," I said, looking around at these people who had hurt me, who had changed, who had learned. To everything we lost and everything we found. The single elephant caught the evening light, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the walls. Different from before, but beautiful in its own way. Just like us. Sometimes the best endings aren't about getting back what you lost, but discovering something better in its place. We'd lost a collection of crystal elephants, but we'd gained something far more precious: understanding, growth, and a family that finally knew how to love each other properly. And somewhere, I knew Grandma was smiling. The call came at exactly 3:47 a.m. Mom had collapsed in the bathroom, and my sister Charlotte's voice trembled as she told me to get to the hospital right away. I remember staring at my reflection in the elevator mirrors of Mount Sinai, still wearing my presentation clothes from earlier that evening. The irony wasn't lost on me. I just closed the biggest deal of my career, and now everything else seemed meaningless. I'm Denise, and until that night, I thought I had it all figured out. My tech company, Morrison Digital, was finally hitting its stride after 5 years of sleepless nights and maxed out credit cards. We'd grown from a team of 3 working out of my garage to 65 employees in downtown Manhattan. But life has a way of reminding you what really matters. I stepped into the hospital hallway, my heart pounding as I dialed his number. His first words made my blood run cold. "Denise, I think Marcus is selling the company." I gripped the phone tighter, watching a nurse wheel another patient past me. "That's impossible. He doesn't have the authority to—" "Check your email," Julio cut in. "Now." As I opened my inbox, I saw it. A company-wide announcement from Marcus Lynch. Subject line, Morrison Digital Acquisition Announcement. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I'd trusted family, and family had just betrayed me in the worst possible way. I burst into the Morrison Digital offices like a storm, my heels clicking against the marble floor of our lobby. The security guard, Mike, who'd worked with me since day one, couldn't meet my eyes as I passed. That's when I knew it was real. "Where is he?" I demanded at the reception desk. "Ms. Denise." Our receptionist Amy jumped up. "We didn't expect— Mr. Marcus is in his office." My office, my company, my life's work. I didn't bother knocking. Marcus sat behind my desk, my grandfather's restored mahogany desk, looking perfectly at ease in his tailored suit. He barely glanced up from his laptop. "Ah, Denise, I was wondering when you'd show up." "What have you done?" My voice came out surprisingly steady despite the rage burning in my chest. He finally looked at me, his lips curving into that smug smile I'd always ignored for Charlotte's sake. I made a strategic business decision. The acquisition will be finalized next week. The shareholders are thrilled. You had no right. Actually, he cut in, pulling out a document from his drawer. I had every right. Remember this? He slid the paper across the desk. You signed full temporary executive powers over to me, including, as clearly stated in Section 4.3, the authority to negotiate potential sales or mergers. I snatched up the document, scanning the fine print I'd foolishly skimmed while rushing to get to Mom's bedside. He was right. I'd signed away everything. How much? I demanded. The deal values the company at $47 million. He leaned back, looking pleased with himself. Quite a nice return on investment, wouldn't you say? It's worth 3 times that. I slammed my hands on the desk. We just landed the Vertex contract. Our projections were optimistic at best, he interrupted. Besides, the deal's done. The board voted yesterday. A knock at the door interrupted us. Julio entered, his face grim. Denise, I tried to warn you. It's fine, Julio, I said, not taking my eyes off Marcus. Could you give us a minute? Once the door closed, Marcus's facade cracked slightly. Look, it's nothing personal. It's just business. Nothing personal? I laughed bitterly. You're my sister's husband. Your family. I trusted you to protect what I built while I took care of our mother, your mother-in-law. He shrugged. The market's volatile. This was the smart play. Who bought us? That's confidential until the announcement. I turned to leave, then stopped. Does Charlotte know? His silence was answer enough. In the hallway, Julio was waiting with Christine. Their faces showed a mix of anger and sympathy that made my throat tight. Come to my place tonight, Christine whispered. We need to talk. Back at the hospital, I found Charlotte sitting with Mom, who was finally sleeping peacefully. My sister took one look at my face and knew. What did he do? She asked quietly. I told her everything. She listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. I had no idea, she whispered. I swear, Denise, he never said anything. I know. I hugged her tightly. This isn't your fault. That evening, I drove to Christine's apartment, my mind racing with possibilities for fighting back. But when she opened her door, I wasn't prepared for who else was there. Julio sat at Christine's dining table with a stack of files. Next to him was Allison, one of our top project managers. But it was the man standing by the window that made me freeze. Cruz Kennedy, my oldest friend turned fierce competitor. We hadn't spoken in years, not since that disastrous attempt to merge our companies had ended in a very public falling out. Hello, Denise, he said softly. I heard you could use some help taking down Marcus Lynch. She's stable now, the doctor said, his words echoing in the sterile hallway. But the cancer has spread more aggressively than we initially thought. She'll need round-the-clock care for the next few months. Charlotte grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. Her husband Marcus stood behind her, his face a mask of concern. I'd take care of her myself, Charlotte whispered, but with the twins. I know, I said, squeezing back. I'll do it. Christine closed the door behind me. Before you say no, hear us out. We found something interesting in these files. Julio slid a document across the table. Marcus has been planning this for months. Look at the dates on these emails. I scanned the correspondence, my hands shaking with fury. He'd started negotiating the sale just 2 weeks after I left. There's more, Allison added. He's been siphoning company resources into his own ventures for weeks. I've been tracking the irregularities. The question is, Cruz said, moving closer, what are you going to do about it? I looked up at my unlikely allies, a plan already forming in my mind. I'm going to take everything from him, I said, just like he took everything from me. Cruz smiled, that dangerous smile I remembered so well. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Marcus's company is vulnerable, Cruz explained, spreading documents across Christine's dining table. He's been so focused on stealing your company that he's neglected his own. His board is unhappy, and his biggest clients are getting restless. I studied the financial reports Julio had somehow obtained. These numbers don't make sense. Where's all the money going? That's the interesting part, Allison chimed in, pulling up spreadsheets on her laptop. He's been investing heavily in crypto and some questionable offshore ventures. Classic signs of someone trying to hide money. Or someone preparing to run, Christine added. Cruz leaned forward, his eyes intense. Here's what you need to know, Denise. Marcus's company is worth roughly $80 million, but its stock is undervalued. With the right strategy, we could acquire it for less than what he's getting for Morrison Digital. And how exactly would I afford that? I asked bitterly. He's taken everything. You have me, Cruz said simply, and my resources. I raised an eyebrow. Last time we tried working together, it ended with you threatening to sue me. That was business. He shrugged. This is personal. Marcus has been a thorn in my side for years. Taking him down would be satisfying. We'd need to move fast, Julio interrupted, before he realizes what's happening. Christine touched my arm. There's something else you should know. I've been talking to some of Marcus's employees. They're miserable. He's cut benefits, frozen salaries, and created a toxic work environment. They'd jump ship in a heartbeat for the right opportunity. My phone buzzed. A text from Charlotte. He's asking questions about your meeting with Cruz. Be careful. He's already suspicious, I said, showing them the message. Cruz smiled. Good. Let him waste time chasing shadows while we do the real work. I've already set up a shell company for the acquisition. Everything will be anonymous until it's too late. What's your angle here, Cruz? I asked directly. Really? He was quiet for a moment, then pulled out his phone and showed me an old email. 3 years ago, Marcus cost me a $200 million deal by spreading rumors about my company's stability. It took me months to recover. I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. So this is about revenge for both of us. Justice, he corrected, with a healthy dose of karma. We worked late into the night, plotting our strategy. Allison would stay in Marcus's company, feeding us information. Julio would quietly reach out to key employees we'd want to keep. Christine would handle the PR groundwork for when everything went public. Around midnight, Cruz and I found ourselves alone on Christine's balcony, the city lights twinkling below. You know this won't be easy, he said softly. Or clean. I'm past caring about clean, I replied. He didn't just steal my company, Cruz. He betrayed my trust when I was taking care of our dying mother. That's unforgivable. How is she? Better, actually. The new treatment's working. I turned to face him. Why did we stop being friends? He laughed. Because we're both stubborn and terrible at admitting when we're wrong? I was wrong, I said quietly. About the merger. You were right. We would have been stronger together. That's when Marcus cleared his throat. What about the company? I'd been avoiding that thought. Running Morrison Digital was like raising a child. It needed constant attention, nurturing, and guidance. But looking through the window at Mom's frail figure in the hospital bed, I knew there was only one choice. Ancient history. He pulled out his phone, showing me another document. Look at this. Marcus's company has a board meeting next week. They're discussing a major restructuring. Perfect timing for a takeover bid? Exactly, but we'll need to move fast. He hesitated. There's one more thing. Your sister... Charlotte knows what we're planning, I assured him. She's the one who told me about the board meeting. Just then, my phone rang. It was Marcus. Put it on speaker, Cruz whispered. Hello, Marcus. Had an interesting dinner with some investors tonight, he said, his voice dripping with false casualness. They mentioned seeing you with Cruz Kennedy. Anything I should know? Just catching up with an old friend, I replied smoothly. Why, feeling nervous? Don't play games, Denise. Whatever you're planning. Like you planned to steal my company while I was caring for our mother. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up, my hands shaking slightly. He's scared, Cruz observed. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. How soon can we move? He checked his watch. Give me 48 hours to get the financing in place. Then we go all in. I looked out at the city, thinking of all the nights I'd spent building my company, all the sacrifices, all the dreams. Marcus had taken that from me. Now I was going to take everything from him. 48 hours, I agreed. Then we destroy him. He's calling another emergency board meeting. Allison whispered into her phone, hiding in the supply closet of Marcus's company. Something's got him spooked. I paced Cruz's office, phone pressed to my ear. What else? He's been making calls all morning. Lots of them. And he just fired 2 senior managers for disloyalty. People are terrified. Perfect timing, Cruz said from his desk, where he was reviewing acquisition documents. Fear creates opportunity. After hanging up with Allison, I turned to Cruz. How many of his employees have reached out? 27 so far, he replied, sliding a folder across his desk, including 3 vice presidents. They're all willing to jump ship the moment we take over. A knock at the door interrupted us. Christine entered with Julio, both looking excited. We found something big, Christine announced, plugging a flash drive into Cruz's laptop. Marcus has been falsifying reports to his board. The company's actual value is nearly 30% lower than what he's reporting. Julio pointed to specific numbers on the screen. Look here, he's been counting future contracts as current assets. Classic cooking of the books. This is exactly what we need, Cruz said, studying the data. With this information, we can force the board's hand. They'll have no choice but to accept our offer once they realize the alternative is a fraud investigation. My phone buzzed. Charlotte again. Marcus just left for an emergency meeting. He was yelling about Cruz on the phone. What's happening? He's panicking, I told the others, showing them the message. But why now? We haven't even made our move yet. Cruz smiled mysteriously. Actually, we have. I had my team start quietly buying shares through various shell companies last week. We already own 12% of his company. You didn't tell me that. Plausible deniability. He shrugged. Besides, I knew you'd try to stop me if I moved too fast. He's right, Julio agreed. The element of surprise is our biggest advantage. Christine's phone chimed. Allison says Marcus is calling all his major shareholders. He's trying to block any potential hostile takeover. Too late, Cruz said, checking his watch. The trading day's almost over, and we've already secured commitments from enough shareholders to push us over 30% ownership. I sat down heavily in one of Cruz's leather chairs. This is really happening, isn't it? Having second thoughts? Cruz asked quietly. No, I said firmly, just remembering something my mother told me once. Success is the best revenge, but make sure the price of revenge doesn't cost you your success. How is she doing? Christine asked softly. Better every day. The doctors are optimistic. I stood up, renewed determination flowing through me. Which is why this has to work. I want her to see justice done. I'll need someone to oversee operations while I'm gone, I said, turning to face Marcus. He was family, after all. My brother-in-law had his own successful business ventures, and Charlotte trusted him completely. Would you consider stepping in temporarily? His eyes lit up, though he tried to hide it. Of course, anything for family. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. Julio's phone buzzed this time. It's happening. Marcus just announced layoffs. 20% of the workforce effective immediately. He's trying to cut costs to make the company look more profitable, Cruz explained. Classic desperate move. Those poor people, Christine muttered. Not poor for long, I said. Call everyone on our contact list. Tell them to be ready. Once we take over, they'll all have positions waiting for them, with better pay and benefits. Cruz nodded approvingly. This is why you're better at this than Marcus. You understand that companies are built on people, not just profits. Another knock at the door. This time it was Charlotte, looking pale but determined. I just left Marcus at his office, she said. He's completely unraveled. He knows something's coming, but he can't figure out what. He actually accused me of spying for you. Are you okay? I asked, hugging her. I'm fine, but I found these in his home office. She pulled out a stack of papers. They're records of all the money he's been moving offshore. Millions of dollars, Denise. Some of it from your company. Cruz took the documents, his eyes widening as he read. This is better than we hoped. With this evidence, we can force an immediate board vote. Do it, I said firmly. He picked up his phone, dialing quickly. Janet, call the board members. Emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Tell them we have evidence of serious financial misconduct. Yes, all of it documented. As Cruz handled the calls, I looked around at my unlikely team. My sister, my old friend, my loyal employees, all united in this cause. Tomorrow morning, Cruz announced, hanging up. 9 a.m. The board will vote on our acquisition offer. And with this evidence, he held up Charlotte's documents. They'll have no choice but to accept. I checked my phone one last time. A message from Allison. Marcus just left the office. He looks destroyed. Whatever you're planning, it's working. Get some rest, Cruz advised everyone. Tomorrow we take everything back. The The boardroom of Marcus's company felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. I sat between Cruz and Christine, watching Marcus pace at the head of the table. His usual polished appearance was noticeably disheveled, his tie slightly askew, dark circles under his eyes. "This meeting is unnecessary," Marcus announced, his voice strained. "Our company is performing exceptionally well." "Is it?" One of the board members, an elderly woman named Patricia, interrupted, "because these documents suggest otherwise." She held up the file Cruz's team had distributed minutes earlier. "Those numbers are," Marcus started. "Accurate," Cruz cut in smoothly, standing up. "And there's more. We've uncovered evidence of systematic financial misconduct, including unauthorized offshore transfers and falsified earnings reports." The board members began murmuring among themselves. I could see the color draining from Marcus's face. "Who exactly are you to make these accusations?" Marcus demanded. Cruz smiled. "As of this morning, our investment group owns 34% of your company's shares, and we're here to present an acquisition offer." "This is ridiculous," Marcus sputtered. "You can't—" "Actually, we can," I said, standing up beside Cruz. "And we have proof of every illegal transaction you've made in the past 6 months, including the money you embezzled from Morrison Digital." Marcus's eyes widened as he finally understood. You're behind this?" "Karma's a bitter pill, isn't it?" I kept my voice steady, professional. "Now, shall we discuss the terms of our offer?" The next 2 hours were a blur of presentations, questions, and increasingly heated discussions. Cruz laid out our proposal while I watched Marcus slowly crumble. Every time he tried to object, another board member would point to another damning piece of evidence. "This is the best option for everyone," Cruz explained. "Our offer is fair, considering the company's actual value, and we're prepared to protect all current employees' positions." The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with my executive team. Julio, my head of operations, looked particularly concerned. 3 months is a long time, Denise. Are you sure about this?" "Marcus knows what he's doing," I assured them, though something in my gut twisted as I said it. "He'll consult me on any major decisions. Nothing will change." "Except yours, of course," I added, looking directly at Marcus. Patricia cleared her throat. "I move that we vote on the acquisition offer immediately." "I second that motion," another board member quickly added. Marcus made one last desperate attempt. "You can't trust them. This is a personal vendetta. Denise is just angry about you stealing my company while I was caring for my dying mother," I interrupted. "Yes, I am. But this isn't about anger, Marcus. This is about justice." The vote was unanimous. Marcus stood frozen as his board members signed the preliminary acquisition agreement one by one. "You'll be hearing from my lawyers," he threatened weakly. "I look forward to it," Cruz replied. "I'm sure they'll be very interested in these offshore account records." As the board members filed out, Allison slipped into the room. "The employees are gathering in the main conference room, as requested." "Perfect timing," I said. "Ready to address your new team?" Cruz gestured to the door. "Ladies first." The main conference room was packed with nervous employees. I recognized many faces from my research, talented people Marcus had undervalued and mistreated. "Good morning," I began, standing at the front of the room. "My name is Denise, and as of 15 minutes ago, I'm your new CEO." The room erupted in whispers. "I know many of you are worried about your jobs. Don't be. Not only are all positions secure, but we're also reinstating the benefits Marcus cut and reviewing all salaries to ensure fair compensation." The tension in the room visibly lifted. "One more thing," I continued. "We're implementing an employee stock ownership program. Everyone in this room will have the opportunity to own a piece of this company's future success." The whispers turned to murmurs of approval. "Ms. Denise?" A young programmer raised his hand. "What about our current projects?" "All viable projects will continue," Cruz answered from beside me, "but with proper resources and support this time." After the announcement, Christine pulled me aside. "Marcus is in his office packing his things. Charlotte's with him." I found them in what used to be Marcus's corner office. Charlotte stood by the window while Marcus shoved items into a box. "Come to gloat?" he snapped when he saw me. "No," I replied calmly. "I came to give you this." I handed him an envelope. He opened it, his hands shaking slightly. "What is this?" "A chance to avoid prosecution," I explained. Sign over any remaining claims to Morrison Digital, and we won't pursue legal action for the fraud. Charlotte turned from the window. Take the deal, Marcus. It's more than you deserve. He looked between us, defeat finally settling over his features. Without a word, he signed the papers. As he walked past me toward the door, he paused. You've destroyed everything I built. No, Marcus, you did that yourself. I just finished what you started. After he left, Charlotte hugged me tightly. It's really over? Almost, I said, looking around at what would soon be my new office. We still have to rebuild, but this time, we'll do it right. He's been spotted at the airport, Julio reported, bursting into my new office. Private terminal. I looked up from the stack of financial records I'd been reviewing. Is he alone? No, he's with some guy in a suit. Looks like a lawyer. Cruz, who'd been reviewing contracts at my conference table, immediately pulled out his phone. I'll alert our legal team. He's probably trying to move the offshore money. Too late, Christine said, walking in with her laptop. I just got confirmation from our banking contacts. The accounts are frozen pending investigation. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, a strange heaviness settled in my chest. Has anyone heard from Charlotte? She's at your mom's, Christine replied softly. Said she needed some time? My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. Watch your back, M. Cruz read the message over my shoulder and immediately called security. Double the guards at all entrances and get someone to trace that number. He's desperate, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Desperate people do stupid things. Ms. Denise? Allison appeared at the door. The development team is waiting for the project review meeting. Right. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Back to actually running a company. The meeting room was packed with developers, all looking nervous but hopeful. As I listened to their project presentations, I couldn't help but notice how many good ideas Marcus had shot down. After the meeting, Christine, my closest friend on the board, pulled me aside. I don't trust him, she said bluntly. Something about Marcus has always felt off. I sighed, gathering papers from the conference table. He's family, Christine. What's the worst that could happen? Just be careful, she warned. Keep tabs on things. This mobile payment system, I pointed to one proposal. Why wasn't this implemented? A young developer named Sarah raised her hand. Mr. Marcus said it was too risky. But honestly, we think he was selling our payment processing data to competitors. More evidence of Marcus's betrayals. The list kept growing. Halfway through the meeting, Cruz slipped me a note. Marcus boarded a flight to Cayman Islands. Legal team en route to intercept. I managed to keep my focus on the presentations, but my mind was racing. What else had Marcus done that we hadn't discovered yet? After the meeting, I found Julio waiting with more news. We found something in the server logs. Marcus accessed sensitive client data last night. Downloaded everything. Get it to revoke all his access immediately, I ordered, and contact every client on that list. They need to know their data might be compromised. Already done, he assured me. But there's something else. Remember that crypto investment we couldn't trace? It was used to buy shares in our biggest competitor. I leaned against my desk, the pieces clicking together. He's trying to orchestrate a counterattack. That's not all, Christine added, walking in with a stack of papers. Look at these emails we recovered. He's been in contact with several board members from Morrison Digital, promising them positions if he regains control. Can he do that? Julio asked. Cruz shook his head. Not legally, but he could cause enough chaos to tank both companies' stock prices. My phone rang. Charlotte. Denise, her voice was shaking. Marcus just called Mom. He told her everything. About stealing the company, about the fraud, everything. He's trying to turn her against you. I gripped the phone tighter. How did she take it? She wants to see you. Now. The drive to the hospital felt endless. I found Mom sitting up in bed, looking stronger than she had in weeks. Charlotte sat beside her, holding her hand. Is it true? Mom asked as I entered. Everything Marcus said? I took a deep breath. About what he did to my company? Yes. About what I did in response? Probably not. He said you destroyed him out of spite. I took back what he stole, I corrected, and stopped him from hurting more people. Mom was quiet for a moment. Your father always said revenge was a poison that kills the holder first. This isn't just about revenge, I insisted. It's about justice, about protecting people's jobs, their futures. And your soul? She asked softly. What's this doing to that? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with an urgent message from Cruz. Marcus just leaked confidential client data to the press. Stock is dropping. Get back here now. I have to go, I said, already heading for the door. Denise, Mom called after me. Remember who you are, not who he made you become. In the car, another message flashed on my phone, this time from Marcus. Hope you enjoyed your victory. Now watch it all burn. I called Cruz. How bad is it? Bad. He replied grimly. He's trying to start a fire. Question is, are we going to fight fire with fire or find another way? I thought of Mom's words as I sped back to the office. The line between justice and revenge was blurring, and I wasn't sure which side I was on anymore. The office was in chaos when I arrived. Phones ringing everywhere, people rushing between desks, the constant ping of urgent messages. Stocks down 18%, Cruz announced as I walked in. Media's having a field day with the leaked data. Where's Marcus now? The next few weeks were a blur of hospital rooms, medication schedules, and late-night phone calls with Marcus about the company. Each time, he assured me everything was better than ever. But something in his tone made me uneasy. One evening, as I sat beside Mom's bed helping her with dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Julio. We need to talk. Something's not right here. Before I could respond, Marcus called. Great news. His voice boomed through the speaker. We're seeing record profits this quarter. You don't need to worry about anything. That's surprising, I said, thinking about Julio's message. Send me the reports? Of course, they're just being finalized. I'll have them to you soon. I hung up and stared at my phone, that uneasy feeling growing stronger. Mom must have noticed my expression because she reached out and touched my hand. Trust your instincts, sweetheart, she said softly. They've never steered you wrong before. I nodded, but I was already thinking about the stack of documents I'd signed before leaving, giving Marcus temporary control. I'd trusted family over instinct, and something told me I was about to learn exactly how much that trust would cost me. The next morning, another text from Julio. Urgent, call me ASAP. Still in Cayman Islands, Julio reported, but he's been doing interviews claiming we orchestrated a hostile takeover and forced him out illegally. I grabbed the remote and turned on the wall-mounted TV. There he was, looking perfectly composed in an expensive suit, playing the victim. Systematic campaign to destroy my reputation, Marcus was saying. They exploited my family connections, used private information against me. Turn it off, I snapped. Get me our PR team. Christine was already on it. They're drafting a statement, but Marcus is controlling the narrative. We need something bigger. What about the employees? I asked. Scared, Allison replied. The leaked data included personal information. They're worried about identity theft, reputation damage. I looked around at the worried faces of my team. This wasn't just about me anymore. Marcus was hurting innocent people to get his revenge. Get everyone in the main conference room, I decided. Now. As the employees filed in, I noticed their nervous whispers, their concerned glances at their phones. These people had trusted me, and now they were paying the price. I know you're scared, I began. Marcus has betrayed not just the company, but each of you personally. He's trying to destroy what we're building here out of spite. The room was dead silent. But here's what he doesn't understand, I continued. A company isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet or data in a server. It's people. It's all of you. I nodded to Cruz, who started distributing documents. What you're receiving is a new employment contract. It includes an immediate 10% raise, comprehensive identity theft protection, and legal support for anyone affected by the data leak. All funded personally by my shares in the company. The whispers started again, but different this time. Hopeful. Additionally, Cruz stepped forward. We're announcing a profit-sharing program, backdated to include the last quarter. The checks will be in your accounts by end of day. A young developer stood up. But what about the stock price? Our options are underwater now. We're instituting a one-time option repricing, I explained. You won't lose a penny of potential value. We take care of our own. The mood in the room shifted palpably. I could feel the energy changing. One more thing, I added. I'm sure you've seen Marcus's interviews. He's painting himself as a victim, but we have proof of everything he did. The question is, do we release it? Silence again. If we do, it guarantees criminal charges. He'll likely go to prison. The company's reputation might take another hit. If we don't, we focus on rebuilding, on proving him wrong through our success. It's your call, Cruz said quietly. But whatever you decide, we're behind you. I thought about Mom's words about revenge and poison, about Marcus's desperate attempts to hurt more people. Get me a microphone, I said. We're doing a live stream, right now. 20 minutes later, I sat in front of a camera, facing not just our employees, but thousands of viewers online. My name is Denise, and I want to tell you a story about trust, betrayal, and choices. I laid it all out, every detail of what Marcus had done, backed up with documents displayed on screen. But I also talked about the employees he'd hurt, the lives he'd disrupted. We could release proof of criminal activity right now, I said, looking directly into the camera. But we won't, because unlike Marcus, we understand that business isn't about destruction. It's about creation, about building something meaningful. The viewer count kept climbing. So Marcus, if you're watching, keep your interviews. Keep trying to burn it all down. We'll be here, building it back up, stronger than ever. I announced our new employee programs, our commitment to ethical business practices, our plans for growth. The stock price started ticking up in real time as I spoke. After the stream ended, Cruz showed me his phone. Look at this. Blarsh trust Denise is trending. The narrative's shifting. My phone buzzed. A message from Charlotte. Mom saw your stream. She's proud of you. So am I. Then another message came through from Marcus. This isn't over. I showed it to Cruz, who smiled. Actually, I think it is. Look. Breaking news flashed across the TV screen. Federal authorities investigating offshore accounts linked to corporate fraud. The tide had turned. Marcus had tried to burn it all down, but from the ashes, something better was rising. He's ready to talk, Charlotte said, standing in my office doorway, at the Federal Detention Center. I looked up from the quarterly reports I'd been reviewing. Our stock had not only recovered, but hit new highs. Why now? The prosecutors offered him a deal, but apparently he'll only take it if you agree to meet with him first. Cruz, who'd been quietly working at the conference table, closed his laptop. You don't owe him anything. I know, I said, standing up, but I need to end this, for all of us. The detention center was cold and sterile. Marcus sat across from me in an orange jumpsuit, the past month of federal custody evident in his haggard appearance. You look well, he said flatly. Success suits you. What do you want, Marcus? He leaned forward, chains clinking. To understand. You could have destroyed me completely, released everything. Why didn't you? Because I'm not you, I replied simply, and because Mom taught us better than that. He flinched at the mention of Mom. How is she? Cancer-free. No thanks to you. I never meant, he started, then stopped. That's not true. I meant everything I did. I saw an opportunity and I took it, just like you taught me. I never taught you to steal or betray family. No, he admitted. That was all me. He slid a paper across the table. This is my confession, complete and detailed. The prosecutors get it if you sign this agreement not to pursue additional civil charges. I studied the document. Charlotte told me about the deal they offered you. 5 years instead of 20. He nodded. I'll lose my law license either way. Everything I worked for, gone. Like what you did to me? Yeah, he said quietly. Karma's a bitter pill, right? I signed the paper. This ends now, Marcus. No more games, no more revenge. Why? He asked again. You won. Why show mercy? Because carrying hatred is exhausting, and I have better things to do with my energy. Back at the office, I found the team gathered for our daily meeting. Julio was presenting growth projections that would have seemed impossible a month ago. The employee ownership program is showing amazing results, he reported. Productivity is up 40%. And the new mobile payment system? I asked. Sarah, the developer, beamed. Launch date set for next week. Beta testing exceeded all expectations. Speaking of expectations, Cruz interrupted, there's something we need to discuss. He nodded to Christine, who pulled up a familiar logo on the screen. Morrison Digital. The board reached out, Cruz explained. They're interested in a merger, for real this time. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. A chance to reclaim what was stolen, but also a risk of reopening old wounds. What do you think? I asked the room. Allison spoke first. The technology synergies make sense, and most of our old team is still there. It's poetic justice, Julio added, building something bigger than either company could be alone. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Coming to the office, bringing lunch for everyone, time to celebrate. Celebrate what? I texted back. Life, she replied. Family, second chances. I looked around at my team. No, my family. Cruz, who'd become more than just an ally. Christine and Julio, who'd stood by me through everything. Allison and Sarah, representing dozens of employees who'd trusted in a new vision. Schedule the merger talks, I decided. But this time we do it right, together. Mom arrived with enough food to feed an army. As everyone gathered in the break room, she pulled me aside. I saw Marcus today, she said, before you did. And? He's finally learning what you already knew, that true strength isn't in destroying things, but in building them. Cruz joined us, handing me a glass of champagne. To new beginnings? To karma, I corrected, raising my glass, and to choosing what kind we want to create. The room filled with laughter and conversation, plans and possibilities. Through the windows, I could see the city skyline where somewhere my old company waited to become part of something new, something better. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Charlotte. Just left Marcus. He asked me to tell you thank you, and he's sorry, for real this time. I showed the message to Mom, who smiled and squeezed my hand. Now that's karma I can believe in. Looking around at everything we'd built from the ashes of betrayal, I finally felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. Marcus had tried to take everything from me, but in doing so, he'd given me something far more valuable, the chance to build something truly meaningful, surrounded by people who understood that success without integrity was no success at all.
I should have known something was wrong when Aston insisted we host the annual family reunion at our house this year. He never cared for these gatherings before, always finding excuses to work late or schedule business trips that conveniently coincided with family events. But there he was, arranging the catering and even picking out the tablecloths. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how my husband's betrayal became his ultimate downfall. The day started perfectly, almost too perfectly. Sunshine streamed through our floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting the elaborate spread of food on our dining room table. Family members trickled in, bearing dishes and warm hugs. My sister Addison arrived early to help, eyeing Aston suspiciously as he flitted around the house with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "Something's off with him," she whispered, helping me arrange wine glasses. "He's never this involved." I nodded, my stomach churning. "I know." The first sign of trouble came when my cousin Annalise arrived. She wore a red dress that seemed inappropriate for a family lunch, her smile a touch too bright as she air-kissed my cheeks. "Sophia, darling, the house looks amazing as always," she gushed, but her eyes were already scanning the room for someone else. I watched as Aston's face lit up when he saw her, a micro-expression that would have been imperceptible to anyone who hadn't spent 10 years memorizing every detail of their spouse's face. My father, Leonardo, was in the middle of his usual speech about family values when Aston clinked his glass, standing up with that smug smile I'd grown to hate over the past few months. "I have an announcement to make," he said, his voice carrying across our suddenly silent dining room. 20 pairs of eyes turned to him, including mine. "I believe in honesty, and it's time for me to be honest with everyone here." My hands grew cold around my wine glass. I knew what was coming, had known it was coming for months, but that didn't make it any easier. "Annalise and I are in love," he declared, reaching for her hand across the table. "We've been seeing each other for the past year, and we've decided to be together openly. Sophia and I are getting divorced." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes shift from Aston to me, waiting for the breakdown, the screaming, the tears. My mother Valentina half rose from her chair, ready to comfort me. Instead, I took a slow sip of my wine and set the glass down carefully. "Is that all?" I asked, my voice steady. Aston's triumphant smile faltered. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. "Sophia?" he started, his tone condescending. "I know this must be shocking." "Not really," I interrupted, standing up. "Though I am curious about one thing, Annalise. Did he promise you a share in the business? Because that might be a bit complicated now." Annalise's perfectly manicured hand tightened around Aston's. "What do you mean?" I smiled, reaching for my phone. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. But please, don't let me stop you two from celebrating your grand announcement. I'm sure you have plans." "Sophia," my father started, his face red with anger. But I held up my hand. "It's fine, Dad, really." I turned to address the stunned room. "I apologize to everyone for this unexpected entertainment. Please enjoy the food. I need some air." As I walked out onto our terrace, I heard chairs scraping and voices rising. Addison followed me out, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You knew," she said. "It wasn't a question." "For months," I confirmed, pulling out my phone and sending a quick text to Jesse, my lawyer. "And I've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" she asked, just as my phone buzzed with Jesse's response. I showed her the message. "All documents are ready. Operation Karma is go." "Sophia," Addison breathed, "what have you done?" I could hear Aston inside, his voice raised as he tried to maintain control of the situation that was rapidly spiraling away from his carefully orchestrated plan. Through the window, I watched as Annalise touched his arm possessively, already marking her territory. "What have I done?" I echoed, a smile playing at my lips. "I've simply made sure that Karma has an excellent lawyer, big sister. And trust me, she's about to be one hell of a bitch." The look of confusion on Addison's face slowly transformed into understanding, then admiration. Behind us, the family chaos continued to unfold, but for the first time in months, I felt perfectly calm. Aston thought he was destroying my world today. He had no idea he'd just walked right into mine. The morning after the reunion disaster, I sat in Jesse's office, watching him sort through the stack of documents I'd been collecting for months. My friend Shanice perched on the leather armchair beside me, scrolling through messages from family members still reeling from yesterday's events. 37 texts asking if you're okay," Shanice announced, shaking her head. "And one very nasty one from Annalise calling you an ice queen. Should I respond to any of these?" "No need," I replied, focusing on Jesse as he pulled out a particular file. "Let them talk." Jesse adjusted his glasses, spreading papers across his mahogany desk. "Everything's in order, Sophia. The timing couldn't be better, actually. Aston signed the last transfer documents 3 days ago, thinking they were routine business paperwork." "Show me again," I said, leaning forward. He pointed to Aston's signature, bold and careless at the bottom of each page. "These give you controlling interest in all 3 subsidiaries." He was so busy planning his grand announcement that he didn't even read what he was signing. The memory of how I'd discovered the affair flooded back. 6 months ago, I'd noticed Aston's sudden interest in his phone, the way he'd angle it away from me while texting. One night, he'd left his laptop open and a message from Annalise popped up. "Can't wait until she's out of the picture. Everything will be ours." "Sophia." Shanice's voice pulled me back to the present. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, straightening my spine. Just remembering the day I decided enough was enough. Jesse gathered the papers into a neat pile. "Well, your preparation paid off. The business is essentially yours now. Aston's shares in the main company are worth practically nothing without controlling interest in the subsidiaries." My phone buzzed. Addison calling. I put her on speaker. "Sis, you need to hear this," she said, her voice urgent. "Aston just tried to access the corporate accounts. He's at the bank right now, throwing a fit because his codes don't work anymore. I checked my watch, right on schedule. Did he try calling the IT department? Oh, yes, Addison laughed. They told him they could only take instructions from the majority shareholder, you. Shanice clapped her hands in delight. Oh, this is better than those revenge movies I love. It gets better, Addison continued. Annalise is with him, and apparently she's not taking the news well. Something about promises he made about their future? Jesse held up another document. Speaking of futures, we should discuss the prenup he insisted on. The irony is beautiful. His own prenup protects your personal assets completely. He can't touch anything you've acquired independently during the marriage, including the businesses I've quietly taken control of. I finished, allowing myself a small smile. The office door opened, and Jesse's assistant poked her head in. Mr. Aston is on line 1. He sounds upset. Jesse looked at me questioningly. I nodded. He pressed the speaker button. Aston's voice filled the room, tight with barely controlled rage. Jesse, what the hell is going on? I need access to the accounts restored immediately. I'm afraid I can't help you with that, Aston, Jesse replied calmly. I represent the majority shareholders' interests now. What are you talking about? I own those companies. Actually, I spoke up, you don't. Not anymore. There was a moment of stunned silence. Sophia, you're there? What have you done? Nothing you wouldn't have done, I said, keeping my voice level. Just protecting my interests. You taught me that, remember? Always be one step ahead in business. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. I'll fight this. With what money? I interrupted. The personal accounts are frozen pending our divorce settlement, and the business accounts? Well, you know how that's going. Annalise's voice came through in the background, shrill with panic. You said everything was taken care of. You promised me. I'll call you back, Aston snapped, and the line went dead. Shanice slow clapped. That was magnificent. It's not over, Jesse warned. He'll try to fight this. Let him, I said, standing up. Everything was done legally. He signed every document voluntarily. His ego made him careless. He never thought I'd be capable of outmaneuvering him. My phone buzzed again, a text from my mother. Your father's furious about the scandal, but I'm proud of you. Come to dinner tonight? Going to face the family? Addison asked, still on speaker. I gathered my purse, feeling lighter than I had in months. Yes, it's time they understood that the quiet, agreeable Sophia they knew is gone. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I'm more than happy to be her assistant. As I left Jesse's office, I could almost hear the sound of Aston's carefully constructed world crumbling around him. It was music to my ears. My mother's house smelled like garlic and childhood memories as I walked through the front door. She was stress cooking again, a trait I'd inherited from her. The kitchen counter was already crowded with 3 different pasta dishes. Mama, I called out, are you feeding an army? She turned, wooden spoon in hand, marinara sauce dotting her apron. Sophia, come taste this sauce. Does it need more basil? Before I could answer, my father's voice boomed from his study. Is that her? Sophia, in here, now. Here we go, I muttered, squeezing my mother's hand as I passed. Dad sat behind his massive desk, looking every bit the traditional patriarch he'd always been. Close the door, he commanded. I did, then took a seat across from him, smoothing my skirt with steady hands. What you're doing, he began. It's not right, taking a man's business from him. Taking what's rightfully mine, I corrected. There's a difference. He slammed his hand on the desk. It's vindictive. This isn't how we handle family matters. Family matters? I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Like how Aston and Annalise handled things, by humiliating me in front of everyone. That's different. Why? Because he's a man? Because he's supposed to be allowed to do whatever he wants while I just smile and take it? My father's face reddened. You're acting out of anger. No, I cut in, leaning forward. I'm acting out of self-respect. Something you taught me, remember? Never let anyone make you feel small. That's what you used to say. The study door opened, and my mother walked in, wiping her hands on her apron. Leonardo, enough. Our daughter is right. Valentina, no, you listen to me, she interrupted, moving to stand behind my chair. For 10 years, we watched Aston treat our daughter like a trophy, making her doubt herself, diminishing her achievements. And now you're angry because she finally showed him who she really is? My phone buzzed, an email from Aston. I opened it, reading aloud. Sophia, we need to talk. What happened between us doesn't have to affect business. We can work something out. Please be reasonable. Ha. See? My father gestured at the phone. He's trying to be reasonable. No, I replied, typing a quick, no thank you response. He's panicking because Annalise is probably realizing he's not the wealthy catch she thought he was. My mother squeezed my shoulder. How are you really doing, sweetheart? I'm okay, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Actually, I'm meeting Jesse and his wife for dinner to go over next steps. Jesse? My father frowned. Your lawyer? More schemes? Strategy, I corrected, standing up. And protection. Aston's not gonna take this lying down. As if on cue, my phone rang. Addison. Sis, she said when I answered. Heads up, Aston just left my office. He tried to convince me to talk you into being reasonable. When I refused, he implied he might have some dirt on Dad's old business dealings. My father's face went pale as he overheard. I put the phone on speaker. What exactly did he say, Addison? Something about irregular payments from the 90s. He's bluffing, right? My father stood up so quickly his chair rolled back. That bastard, he promised those records were destroyed. Dad? I turned to him, watching decades of confidence crumble into worry. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Leonardo, what records? He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. It was a different time. Business was done differently then. I held up my hand, speaking into the phone. Addison, I'll call you back. Ending the call, I faced my father. Tell me everything, now. 20 minutes later, I was back in my car, hands shaking as I dialed Jesse's number. Cancel dinner plans. We need to meet now. Aston's playing dirtier than we expected. What's wrong? Jesse asked. He's going after my father. Old business dealings that could cause problems. Big problems. On my way to the office, bring your father's records, everything you can find. I started the car, my mind racing. Aston wasn't just trying to save himself anymore. He was willing to destroy my entire family to do it. The game had changed, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I wasn't the same woman who'd silently endured his betrayals. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Do what you need to do. Protect our family. I love you. I took a deep breath, shifted into drive, and headed toward Jesse's office. Aston wanted to play hardball? Fine. He was about to learn that karma wasn't his only problem. He had made an enemy of a woman with nothing left to lose. Jesse's office was dark except for his desk lamp when I arrived with my father's old files. Shanice had joined him, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. I've been digging, she announced without looking up. You're not going to believe what I found about Annalise. Later, I said, dropping the files on Jesse's desk. We need to handle this first. Jesse opened the first folder, scanning documents yellowed with age. His expression grew increasingly grave. This is serious, Sophia. These payment records, if they got out, my father would be ruined, I finished. I know. Shanice finally looked up from her screen. But how did Aston even know about these? A memory hit me like a thunderbolt. The fishing trips. Every summer he'd go fishing with my father. They'd drink, talk business. I grabbed my phone, dialing Addison. "What's up?" She answered immediately. "Those fishing trips Aston took with Dad. Were you ever there when they came back?" "Sometimes. They'd be drunk, laughing about the good old days." "Oh, God. Dad talked, didn't he?" "Bingo," I said, hanging up. Jesse was already organizing the documents into piles. "Okay, we need to—" His office door burst open. Annalise stood there, mascara streaked down her face. "You bitch," she spat at me. "You've ruined everything." Shanice stood up, moving between us, but I waved her off. "Please enlighten me about how I ruined your perfect plan to steal my husband and my money." "He was never supposed to be poor," she shrieked. "This isn't what we planned." I leaned forward. "We?" Annalise's face went white. She stumbled backward, but Shanice was faster, closing the door behind her. "Sit down," I commanded. "Tell me everything." "I don't have to—" "Actually," Jessie interrupted, "you do, because right now you're an accomplice in attempted corporate theft. So sit down." She collapsed into a chair, her designer dress wrinkled, her perfect image cracking. It wasn't my idea. "Start talking," I said. "Marcus started it," she whispered. "Marcus," the name hit me like a slap. "Your ex-husband?" She nodded miserably. "He knew about Aston's gambling debts. Said if I could get Aston to leave you, to transfer the business assets before the divorce." "The gambling debts?" Jessie asked sharply. "Underground poker games, high stakes. He owes a lot." My phone buzzed, a text from Aston. "Last chance, meet me tomorrow at noon, the cafe where we had our first date, or Daddy's secrets go public." I showed the message to Jessie, who smiled for the first time that night. "Perfect. He's desperate." Shanice turned her laptop around. "Speaking of desperate, look what I found. Emails between Marcus and Annalise, planning everything, including how to blackmail your father if things went wrong." Annalise burst into tears. "I'm sorry. Marcus threatened to reveal my own secrets if I didn't help. I never wanted—" "Save it," I cut her off. "Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna tell me everything about these poker games. Names, dates, amounts, everything." "I can't. These people are dangerous." "More dangerous than me?" I asked quietly. "Because right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and fraud charges." She stared at me for a long moment, then reached for her phone with trembling hands. "I have pictures from when I followed him one night. The location, the people there." Jessie examined the photos. "This is perfect. These games are illegal. If the authorities were to receive an anonymous tip, Aston would be ruined," Shanice finished. "No," I said, standing up. "First, we meet him tomorrow. Let him think he's winning. Then we destroy him completely." "What about me?" Annalise asked in a small voice. I looked at my cousin, this woman who tried to take everything from me, now broken and afraid. "You're going to help us. Consider it your redemption arc." "And Marcus?" "Oh," I smiled. "He'll get exactly what he deserves. Jessie, draft up immunity paperwork for Annalise. Shanice, get those emails ready. Tomorrow at noon, we're having a very interesting coffee date." As Annalise signed the papers, Jessie quickly prepared. My phone lit up with another message, this time from my mother. "Remember what I taught you about forgiveness?" I typed back, "Yes, but first, justice." Looking at the tear-stained face of my cousin, the determined expressions of my friends, and the damning evidence spread across Jessie's desk, I felt a calm certainty settle over me. Tomorrow, Aston would learn that karma wasn't just a bitch. She was a carefully orchestrated symphony of consequences, and I was conducting every note. The cafe looked exactly the same as it had 12 years ago when Aston first asked me out. The same vintage posters on exposed brick walls, the same mismatched chairs, the same rich coffee aroma. But I was different. I chose a corner table with a clear view of both exits. Shanice sat at the counter, pretending to work on her laptop. Jesse and Addison waited in a car across the street. Everything was in place. Aston walked in at exactly noon, wearing his favorite power suit, the one he wore when he wanted to intimidate people. He slid into the chair across from me, that familiar smug smile playing on his lips. "You're looking well," he said, as if we were meeting for a casual catch-up. "Cut the small talk," I replied. "You threatened my father." He leaned back, adjusting his gold cufflinks, a gift from my father last Christmas. "Business is business, darling. You forced my hand." "Like you forced Annalise's hand?" His smile faltered for a split second. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. Annalise's voice, tearful but clear, detailing the scheme with Marcus, the gambling debts, everything. The color drained from his face. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I slid an envelope across the table. "These are copies of your IOUs from the poker games. Quite a sum you've racked up. I wonder what the gaming commission would think." "You wouldn't dare," he hissed, but his hands shook as he opened the envelope. "Try me. Oh, and before you think about those documents about my father," I pulled out another envelope. "Turns out the statute of limitations expired 3 years ago. But your gambling debts, those are very current." He gripped the table's edge. "What do you want?" "Sign these." I produced a stack of papers. "Full divorce settlement. You walk away with your personal assets, what's left of them. No alimony, no claims on the business." "And if I don't?" "Then in about," I checked my watch, 30 minutes, an anonymous tip about illegal high-stakes poker games reaches the authorities. With proof. His face contorted with rage. "You vindictive—" "Careful?" I interrupted. "Think very carefully about your next words." The cafe door chimed. Annalise walked in, followed by Marcus, right on schedule. "What is this?" Aston demanded, half rising. "Sit down," Marcus ordered, his voice low. "We need to talk about the money you owe me." Aston's face went from red to white. "You told her?" "She told me everything," I said. "How you borrowed money from Marcus to cover your gambling debts. How you promised him a piece of the business once you married Annalise and took control. One problem, though, it was never your business to give away." "You set me up," Annalise said, tears in her eyes. "Used me to get to Sophia's money. Made me betray my own family." Marcus stepped closer to our table. "I want my money, Aston. Now." I don't have it," Aston stammered. "Then sign the papers," I said, pushing them toward him. "Walk away clean. Start fresh." His hand trembled as he reached for the pen. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is." I nodded to Shanice, who pressed send on her laptop. "Those emails you and Marcus exchanged about the scheme? They're now in the possession of every board member. Your reputation in the business world is finished." He scrawled his signature across each page, desperation replacing arrogance in his eyes. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I learned from the best," I replied, standing up. "You always said business was about staying one step ahead." As I gathered the signed papers, Marcus grabbed Aston's arm. "We're going to have a private conversation about payment plans." "Sophia," Aston called as I headed for the door. "I'm sorry. I never meant—" "Save it," I cut him off. "You're only sorry you got caught. Goodbye, Aston." Outside, Jesse and Addison were waiting. "Did he sign?" Jesse asked. I handed him the papers. "Every page. How long until it's official?" "I'll file them today. By next week, you'll be free." Addison hugged me tight. "You did it, sis." My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Is it done? I typed back, yes, family dinner tonight? Her response came immediately. Of course, your father's making his famous lasagna. Says he's never been prouder of you. Looking back through the cafe window, I watched as Aston withered under Marcus's quiet threats. Annalise caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you," before slipping away. Ready to go? Addison asked. I took one last look at the cafe where my story with Aston had begun and where it had just ended. More than ready, it's time for a new chapter. As we walked away, I heard Aston's desperate voice floating through the open window, pleading with Marcus, but I didn't look back. Karma had finally caught up with him, and I had a family dinner to attend. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in, heels clicking against the polished floor. 12 pairs of eyes followed my movement to the head of the table, Aston's former seat. My seat now. "Good morning," I said, placing my laptop down. "Shall we begin?" Harold, the oldest board member, cleared his throat. "Ms. Sophia, given the unusual circumstances of your acquisition, you mean how I legally obtained controlling interest while my husband was busy planning to steal it through his mistress?" I smiled pleasantly. "Those circumstances?" Nervous laughter rippled around the table. Before Harold could respond, the door burst open. Aston stormed in, looking considerably less polished than usual. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "This meeting can't proceed," he announced. "I'm contesting the transfer of shares." I didn't even look up from my laptop. "Security, please escort Mr. Aston out." "You can't do this." He slammed his hands on the table. "These people need to know what kind of woman you really are." Now I did look up. "You mean the kind who caught her husband trying to embezzle company funds to pay off illegal gambling debts?" The room went deadly quiet. Aston's face turned purple. "That's right," I continued, pulling up documents on the projector screen. "Let me show everyone exactly what kind of person I am, and more importantly, what kind of person you are." Spreadsheets filled the screen, detailed records of Aston's underground poker losses, followed by suspicious transfers from company accounts. "I've already reported these discrepancies to the proper authorities," I announced. "The company will cooperate fully with their investigation." "You're lying," Aston sputtered, but his eyes told a different story. The boardroom door opened again. This time, 2 security guards entered, followed by Jessie and, to everyone's surprise, Annalise. "Actually," Annalise said, her voice shaking slightly, "she's not. I've already given my statement to the investigators about everything, the gambling, the theft, the plan to take over the company." Aston lunged toward her. "You treacherous!" The security guards caught him before he could reach her. As they dragged him toward the door, he shouted, "Your father's no better. Tell them about his dirty dealings." "My father," I said calmly, "has already disclosed his past irregularities to the board's ethics committee. Unlike you, he's taken responsibility for his actions." Harold stood up. "I move to formally recognize Sophia as CEO and chairperson, effective immediately." "Seconded," called out Maria, the youngest board member. "I've seen enough." The vote was unanimous. As the security guards finally managed to remove Aston, his threats echoing down the hallway, I pulled up the next item on our agenda. "Now," I said, "let's discuss the company's future." 2 hours later, I stood in my new office, Aston's old office, staring out at the city skyline. Jesse entered with a stack of papers. "The authorities want to interview you tomorrow about Aston's financial activities," he said, "and Marcus has apparently skipped town." "Good," I replied. "One less problem to deal with." My phone rang. Addison. "Sis, you need to turn on the news, right now." I grabbed the remote, switching on the office TV. There was Aston. being led out of his favorite underground poker club in handcuffs, along with several other players and the club owner. Anonymous tip, Jessie said with a small smile. Imagine that. Shanice burst into the office, waving her phone. Have you seen? It's everywhere. Social media is blowing up. How's Annalise holding up? I asked. Better, Shanice replied. She's in therapy, says she wants to make amends. The office door opened again, my parents this time. My father looked at the TV, then at me. I was wrong, he said simply. You handled this exactly right. My mother squeezed his hand. We both underestimated you, sweetheart. It won't happen again. Another news alert flashed across the screen. Local business tycoon arrested for fraud and illegal gambling. More arrests expected. You know, Jessie said, for someone who just took down her cheating husband, exposed a criminal gambling ring, and became CEO of a major company, you seem remarkably calm. I turned away from the TV, facing my family and friends, the people who had stood by me through everything. That's because for the first time in years, I feel completely in control. I said, no more pretending, no more compromising who I am. My phone buzzed with a text from Annalise. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't waste it. Looking around at my supporters, at the empire I'd protected, at the future I'd secured, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of my victory. Karma hadn't just helped me survive, she'd helped me thrive, and this was just the beginning. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived for Aston's arraignment. 3 months had passed since his arrest, and the media circus hadn't died down. Ms. Sophia, any comment on your ex-husband's plea deal? How does it feel to be the youngest female CEO in the industry? I walked past them, Addison and Jessie flanking me like bodyguards. Inside, the marble halls echoed with whispers as we made our way to courtroom 3. You don't have to be here, Addison whispered. The prosecutor can handle this. I want to see his face, I replied. I need to. The courtroom doors opened, and there he was, Aston, in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. Gone was the designer suit, the arrogant smile, the perfectly styled hair. He looked small. All rise, the bailiff called out. As the judge entered, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Annalise slipped into the back row, wearing dark sunglasses despite being indoors. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave a slight nod. In the matter of the state versus Aston, the judge began. The proceedings moved quickly. The prosecutor outlined the charges: fraud, embezzlement, participation in illegal gambling operations. Aston's lawyer, a far cry from the prestigious firm he once used, looked defeated before he even spoke. Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea to guilty on all counts. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Aston's shoulders slumped. Very well, the judge said. Mr. Aston, please rise. As Aston stood, he turned slightly, his eyes finding mine. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Before I accept your plea, the judge continued, do you wish to make a statement? Aston cleared his throat. I'd like to address my ex-wife. The judge nodded. I sat straighter as Aston faced me fully. Sophia, his voice cracked, you were right. About everything. I thought I was smarter than everyone else. I thought I could take whatever I wanted. But you beat me at my own game. And the worst part is, you did it legally, perfectly. Everything I taught you about business, you used against me. Is there a point to this? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, not just for the crimes, but for underestimating you, for betraying you, for thinking you were just a trophy wife who wouldn't fight back. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, while this is touching, We have a plea agreement to discuss. Indeed, the judge said. Mr. Aston, this court accepts your guilty plea. Based on the agreement reached with the prosecution, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison with an additional 3 years of supervised release. As the judge continued listing the terms, including restitution payments, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus's former poker dealer. Boss, you were right. Found the offshore accounts. Sending details now. I forwarded it to Jesse without looking at him. We'd discuss it later. The bang of the gavel brought my attention back to the proceedings. As the bailiff led Aston away, he tried one last time to catch my eye. I stared straight ahead. Outside, the reporters were waiting. This time, I stopped. Ms. Sophia, your response to your ex-husband's courtroom apology? I adjusted my blazer. Actions have consequences. Mr. Aston's actions destroyed our marriage, nearly destroyed our company, and ultimately destroyed his life. Let that be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can take advantage of others without repercussions. Back at the office, I found my parents waiting in my executive suite. My father held up a bottle of champagne. The board meeting went well? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Unanimous approval of your 5-year plan, he beamed, and the stock price is up 12% since the announcement of Aston's plea deal. My mother poured the champagne. To karma, she said, raising her glass. To justice, my father added. To both, I said, clinking glasses with them. My phone buzzed again. Annalise, thank you for not mentioning my involvement in court. I start my new job next week. Clean slate. I typed back. Make it count. Looking out my office window at the city skyline, I watched the sun setting on one chapter of my life and rising on another. The company was thriving. Aston was facing justice, and Earth to Sophia. Addison waved her hand in front of my face. Where'd you go just now? I smiled, turning back to my family. Just thinking about tomorrow. We have work to do. Because that's the thing about karma. She doesn't just deliver justice. Sometimes she delivers opportunities, and I was ready to seize every single one. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries as I unlocked the door to my old cafe, our old cafe. The realtor had called yesterday with the news. The owners were selling, and I'd made the highest bid. It's perfect, Shanice said, running her hand along the exposed brick wall. But why this place? Because, I smiled, sometimes the best revenge is living well. The vintage posters were faded. The mismatched chairs needed reupholstering, but the bones were good, just like mine had been, after Aston's betrayal. My phone buzzed, a text from Jesse. Marcus found in Bali, local authorities picking him up now. Good news? Shanice asked, noting my expression. The best kind. Justice keeps rolling in. The bell above the door chimed. Annalise walked in, looking different in jeans and a simple sweater, more like the cousin I remembered from childhood. When you asked me to meet you here, she said, glancing around, I almost didn't come. But you did. I pulled out a chair. Sit, we need to talk. She sat, fidgeting with her sleeve. I heard about Marcus, the authorities. Found him, I finished. He'll face charges, but that's not why I asked you here. I slid a folder across the table. She opened it, her eyes widening. This is a business proposal? The cafe needs a manager, I said. Someone who understands both business and redemption. Someone who needs a real fresh start. Tears welled in her eyes. After everything I did. The past is past, I interrupted. What matters is what we do now. The door chimed again. My parents entered, followed by Addison and Jesse. Well? My father asked, looking around. Is it official? I held up the keys. Just signed the papers this morning. My mother pulled out a small wrapped package. Then you'll need this. Inside was a framed photo. Me at 16, working my first job as a barista, learning the value of hard work and independence. "Remember what you told me that summer?" my mother asked. "That someday you'd own your own cafe?" And now she owns an empire and a cafe. Addison grinned. Jesse cleared his throat. "Speaking of empire, the board approved your proposal to start a foundation helping women in business. They were particularly impressed with the mentorship program. A program I hope you'll help with," I said to Annalise. "Your experience could help others avoid similar mistakes." She wiped her eyes, nodding. "I'd like that." My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Former business tycoon begins prison sentence. Ex-wife's company reports record profits. "You know," Shanice said, reading over my shoulder, "for someone who lost everything, Aston sure helped you find yourself." "No," I corrected her. "I found myself. He just made the mistake of getting in my way." The afternoon light streamed through the windows, casting warm patterns on the floor. Outside, life moved at its usual hectic pace, but in here, time seemed to slow down. "To new beginnings," my father raised an imaginary glass. "And old wisdom," my mother added. "Actually," I said, moving behind the counter, "this old place still has a working espresso machine. Let me make us some real drinks to toast with." As I worked the familiar machinery, muscle memory taking over, I caught glimpses of my reflection in the chrome surface. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd once sat here, accepting Aston's first dinner invitation. She was stronger, wiser, more complete. I served the drinks, lattes with perfect foam hearts on top, just like I used to make, and raised my cup. "To Karma," I said, "who taught me that revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about rebuilding yourself." "To Family," Annalise added softly, "who gives second chances." "To Justice," Jesse raised his cup, served both hot and cold. We laughed, and in that moment I felt the last pieces click into place. The empire I'd protected would thrive. The cafe would become something new and beautiful, and the foundation would help other women find their strength. As for Aston, he was just another lesson learned, another chapter closed. The real story had always been about me, about finding my power, my voice, my path. The bell chimed again as new customers wandered in, drawn by the lights and warmth. I stood behind the counter where my journey had truly begun, ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. Because sometimes karma doesn't just balance the scales, she helps you build something better from the ashes of what was lost, and that's the sweetest revenge of all.
The first time I realized something was terribly wrong with my in-laws' finances, I was sitting at Camila's antique mahogany desk, surrounded by the suffocating scent of her designer perfume and stacks of tax documents that didn't add up. I'm Samantha, and 3 years into my marriage to Julian Gibson, I was still the family outsider, the girl from the wrong side of the tracks who dared to marry into old money. That afternoon, I'd offered to help Camilla organize their tax records, hoping to finally earn her approval. Instead, I discovered why they'd kept me at arm's length all this time. "Darling, would you like some tea?" Camilla's voice floated through the study doorway, making me jump. I quickly shuffled the papers I'd been examining, my hands trembling. "No, thank you," I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. The numbers swam before my eyes. Shell companies, offshore accounts, millions of dollars hidden from the IRS. "Are you sure you don't need any help?" She appeared in the doorway, her perfectly manicured hand resting on the frame. Everything about Camilla was precise, from her pearl necklace to her calculating smile. "I've got it under control," I said, forcing a smile. "Just organizing everything by date." She lingered, watching me with those hawk-like eyes. "You know, you've been such a blessing, helping with all this tedious paperwork. Julian was right about your attention to detail." My stomach churned at her condescending tone. 3 years of backhanded compliments and subtle jabs had taught me to read between the lines. "Speaking of Julian," she continued, "he's joining us for dinner tonight. Jesus has some exciting news about the company expansion." I nodded, already dreading another formal family dinner, where I'd be subtly reminded of my inadequacies. I'll finish up here soon. After she left, I took photos of the most damning documents with shaking hands. That evening, I sat through dinner in a daze, barely tasting the perfectly prepared salmon while Jesus droned on about their latest business venture. "We're looking at acquiring 3 more properties downtown," he announced, swirling his wine glass. "The market's prime for expansion." Julian squeezed my hand under the table. "That's fantastic, Dad. Sam and I could help with the paperwork." "No need," Camilla cut in smoothly. "Roman has everything under control." I caught Victoria's eye across the table. Julian's sister gave me a sympathetic smile. She'd always been the kindest of the bunch. "Actually," I spoke up, surprising myself, "I noticed some interesting figures while organizing the tax documents today." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Camilla's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Oh?" Jesus' voice was dangerously quiet. "The numbers for the Harrison Street property," I continued, heart pounding. "They seem unusual." "Business finances can be quite complex, dear," Camilla said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Perhaps it's best to leave these matters to those who understand them." Julian shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Sam's actually quite good with numbers, Mother. Julian." Jesus' tone ended the conversation. "Some brandy in the study?" As the men left, Camilla turned to me, her voice honey-sweet, but her eyes cold. "Samantha, darling, why don't you help Victoria clear the table? We wouldn't want to overwhelm you with all this business talk." Later that night, lying beside Julian in our bed, I stared at the ceiling fans spinning lazily above us. "Your parents hate me," I whispered. Julian rolled over, pulling me close. "They don't hate you. They're just set in their ways." Would they be set in their ways if I came from money? If my father was a CEO instead of a mechanic? He sighed, a sound I'd grown too familiar with. "Sam, please. They're trying." I thought about the documents hidden in my phone, the evidence of years of systematic tax evasion. "Are they? Really? You're part of this family now," he said, kissing my forehead. "That's all that matters." But as I lay there in the dark, listening to Julian's breathing even out, I knew I had a choice to make. I could keep playing the dutiful daughter-in-law, turning a blind eye to their crimes, or I could do something about it. My phone glowed on the nightstand, containing secrets that could bring down the mighty Gibson empire. The question wasn't whether I should act. It was whether I was ready for the consequences when I did. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would decide whether to be the good daughter-in-law they never wanted or become the whistleblower they never saw coming. I spent the next week gathering my courage, documenting everything I could find, and planning exactly what I would say. The perfect opportunity came during Sunday dinner, a Gibson family tradition I'd grown to dread. "More wine, Samantha?" Camilla held the crystal decanter, her signature patronizing smile in place. "No, thank you." I set down my fork, my heart thundering against my ribs. "Actually, I'd like to discuss something important." The dining room fell silent. Even Victoria stopped pushing her food around her plate to look at me. "Can it wait until after dessert, dear?" Camilla's voice had that edge I'd come to recognize, the one that said, "Know your place." "No," I said firmly, pulling out my phone. "It can't." Jesus set down his wine glass with a sharp clink. "What's this about?" I pulled up the photos I'd taken, sliding my phone across the polished table. "It's about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the millions you've hidden from the IRS." The silence that followed was deafening. Julian reached for my phone, but his father snatched it first. "Where did you get these?" Jesus' face had turned an alarming shade of red. "From your own files," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "The ones Camilla asked me to organize." Camilla laughed, but it sounded forced. "Darling, you're clearly confused. These are complex business matters." "I'm not confused," I cut her off. "I worked in accounting before marrying Julian, remember? Or did you forget that detail about my humble background?" "Sam," Julian touched my arm. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," I pulled away from him. "I'm done with private discussions and swept away secrets. What you're doing is wrong. It's illegal." "You ungrateful little—" Jesus started to rise, but Camilla placed a manicured hand on his arm. "Samantha," she said, her voice deadly calm. "Think very carefully about what you're doing. About who you're threatening. I'm not threatening anyone, I replied. I'm giving you a chance to make this right, to come clean. Victoria spoke up unexpectedly. She has a point, Mother. This can't go on forever. Stay out of this. Jesus snapped at her before turning back to me. You married into this family. Everything you have, your house, your lifestyle, comes from our success. You mean you're fraud, I corrected him. Julian finally found his voice. Sam, please, these are my parents. I turned to him, feeling my heart crack. And what about what's right? What about the law? The law? Camilla laughed again, harder this time. The law is for people who don't know how to navigate around it. People like your father, fixing cars for minimum wage. The mention of my father made something snap inside me. At least my father earned his money honestly. Get out! Jesus' voice was quiet but menacing. Get out of my house. I stood up, hands shaking. Julian? My husband sat there, staring at his plate, saying nothing. Julian, I repeated, my voice breaking. Maybe. He finally looked up, his face torn. Maybe you should go home. Cool off. We can talk about this tomorrow. Victoria stood up. I'll drive you. She can find her own way out, Camilla interrupted. And Samantha? Don't bother coming to any more family functions. Clearly you don't understand how things work in our world. I walked to the door on trembling legs, pausing only to look back at Julian. Are you really going to let them do this? He wouldn't meet my eyes. The drive home was a blur. I kept expecting Julian to call, to say he was coming home, to choose me over his family's corruption. But my phone remained silent. Hours later, I was sitting in our dark living room when I heard his key in the lock. Julian walked in, looking exhausted. They want you to sign an NDA, he said without preamble. I stared at him in disbelief. An NDA? That's what you have to say to me? Sam, please understand. They're my family. And what am I? I stood up, anger finally overtaking fear. Just the naive girl you married who was supposed to keep her mouth shut and play along? No, of course not. He ran his hands through his hair. But this is complicated. The business, our lifestyle, everything. It's not complicated. I cut him off. It's very simple. What they're doing is wrong and you know it. Give me time, he pleaded. I'll talk to them. We'll figure something out. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for the first time. No, Julian. You need to figure out where you stand, because I won't be part of this. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while. Sam, when you decide whether you're my husband or their son, let me know. I packed a bag and left, my wedding ring feeling like a dead weight on my finger. As I drove away, I realized there was no going back now. The only question was, what would I do next? My sister Maria's couch wasn't comfortable, but it beat staying in that mansion of lies. 3 days had passed since the confrontation, and Julian's texts grew increasingly desperate. Please come home. We can work this out. My parents want to talk. I was making coffee in Maria's tiny kitchen when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Gibson? A smooth, familiar voice. This is Roman Lee. My hand tightened around the phone. The family lawyer. Of course they'd send him. What do you want, Roman? I'm calling to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. His tone was practiced, professional. Perhaps we could meet at my office. No thanks, I'm done with private meetings and backroom deals. Mrs. Gibson, it's Samantha. I cut him off. Or Ms. Hernandez, if you prefer. A pause. Very well, Samantha. I should warn you that pursuing this matter could have unfortunate consequences for everyone involved. The threat wasn't subtle. Are you threatening me, Roman? Not at all. I'm merely suggesting you consider your position carefully. The Gibsons are willing to be generous. I laughed bitterly. Generous with their stolen money? No thanks. Think about Julian, he pressed. Your marriage, your future. Goodbye, Roman. I hung up and found Maria standing in the doorway, arms crossed. The lawyer? I nodded, hands shaking as I poured coffee. You know what you have to do, right? She said, taking the cup from my trembling hands. Yeah. I pulled out my laptop. I do. It took an hour to compile everything into a coherent report. Another 30 minutes to find the right IRS whistleblower channels. My cursor hovered over the submit button when my phone buzzed again. A text from Victoria. They're planning something. Watch your back. Then another message, this time from an unknown number. Drop it now or you'll regret it. Maria read over my shoulder and whistled. They're scared. Good. I hit submit. That afternoon, I went to the bank and opened a new account in my name only. As I was leaving, I spotted Roman watching from across the street. He didn't try to hide. He wanted me to see him. My phone rang. Julian. What did you do? His voice was panicked. The IRS just called Dad's office. What needed to be done? Sam, please, you can still fix this. Tell them it was a mistake. The only mistake was thinking I could ignore what your family was doing. They're your family too. No, I said quietly. They made it very clear that I'm not. That night, Maria and I were watching TV when someone knocked. Through the peephole, I saw Victoria looking nervous. Can I come in? Maria stood protectively nearby as I opened the door. They're furious, Victoria said, stepping inside. Dad's shredding documents. Mom's having some kind of breakdown. Julian. She hesitated. What about Julian? He's helping them. He's choosing them. I'd expected it, but it still hurt. Why are you here, Victoria? Because you're right. She pulled out a USB drive. And I have more proof. Dad's been doing this for decades. But Sam, she grabbed my hand. Be careful. Roman's not just their lawyer. He's involved in everything. After she left, Maria poured us both wine. You okay? No, I twisted my wedding ring. But I will be. The next morning, I woke to breaking news. Prominent business family under investigation for tax fraud. My phone exploded with messages. Julian, Camilla, Jesus, Roman. I ignored them all. Instead, I called my old boss at the accounting firm. Sandra, it's Samantha. Remember how you said there'd always be a place for me? Of course. Are you finally leaving that golden cage? I looked around Maria's modest apartment, feeling lighter than I had in years. Yeah, I am. When can you start? Tomorrow. That evening, I packed up my office at the Gibson Company. Julian found me there. You're really doing this? He looked lost, younger somehow. I already did it. I handed him my wedding ring. Your mother can add it to her collection. Sam? No, Julian. You had a choice. You made it. As I walked out, carrying my small box of belongings, I passed Roman in the hallway. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Save your threats. Everything I know is already documented and in safe hands. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. He smiled thinly. Well played. I learned from the best, I replied, walking past him. Outside, the summer evening was warm and full of possibility. My phone buzzed with another anonymous threat, but I didn't bother reading it. They couldn't touch me anymore. I was done being the family doormat. Now I was their worst nightmare. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. 6 months after blowing the whistle, I barely recognized my life, or myself. My desk at Sandra's firm had become my new sanctuary, and my promotion to senior accountant came faster than expected. Another late night? Sandra leaned against my doorframe, eyeing the takeout containers. Just finishing the Miller audit. I stretched, checking my watch. Lost track of time. You've been doing that a lot lately. She sat down across from me. The divorce papers came through? I nodded, touching the pale band of skin where my ring used to be. Julian signed them yesterday. And how are you feeling about that? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with Victoria's name. We'd stayed in touch, despite everything. Hey Vic, what's up? Turn on the news. Channel 7, now. I grabbed my laptop, pulling up the local news station. The headline made my heart stop. Local business empire crumbling. FBI joins IRS investigation. They raided the offices today. Victoria's voice shook. Roman tried to destroy evidence, but they caught him. Dad's having chest pains. Mom's mom. And Julian? Cooperating with investigators, finally. He's trying to save himself. After hanging up, Sandra was still watching me. You okay? Actually, yeah. I closed my laptop. I think I am. Good, because I have an offer for you. She slid a folder across my desk. We're opening a new division, financial forensics. After what you uncovered with the Gibsons, I think you'd be perfect to lead it. I opened the folder, my eyes widening at the salary figure. Sandra, this is what you're worth. She stood up. Think about it, but not too long. We start training next month. That night, I treated myself to dinner at a small Italian restaurant, the kind Camilla would have sneered at. As I twirled pasta around my fork, a familiar figure slid into the seat across from me. "Hello, Roman." He looked terrible. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his eyes haunted. "We need to talk." "No, we don't. I can give you everything." He leaned forward. Names, dates, accounts, everything. I set down my fork. "And what do you want in return?" "Your word that you'll tell them I helped, that I cooperated." "Why should I help you?" He smiled bitterly. "Because you're not like them. Or me." I studied him for a moment. "Send everything to the FBI. I'm not your messenger." "They'll destroy me." "Like you tried to destroy me?" He slumped back. "I deserve that." "Yes, you do." I signaled for the check. "Goodbye, Roman." Walking home, I got another call. Julian. "Can we meet?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, Sam, I messed up. I know that now. Now that you're facing charges." Silence. Then, "I miss you. You missed me so much you signed the divorce papers without a fight." "I was wrong. About everything. I should have chosen you." I stopped walking, watching the city lights reflect off a store window. "Yes, you should have. But you didn't. Give me another chance." "No." The word came easily now. "I'm not your backup plan, Julian. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your anything anymore." Back at my new apartment, smaller than the Gibson mansion but actually mine, I found an email from Sandra about the training program. Below it was a message from Victoria. "Mom's asking about you, says she wants to apologize." I laughed out loud at that one. Camilla apologize? The mighty really had fallen. My phone buzzed again. A text from my father. "Proud of you, mija, always have been." Tears pricked my eyes as I replied, "Love you, Papa." I spent the rest of the evening working on my training proposal for the new division. Around midnight, a breaking news alert popped up. "Roman Lee arrested. Attorney faces multiple charges." My hand hovered over Victoria's number, but I stopped myself. Their drama wasn't my problem anymore. Instead, I opened my laptop and started typing, "Dear Sandra, I accept the position." The words flowed easily. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. Not as Julian's wife, not as the Gibsons' daughter-in-law, but as myself, Samantha, the woman who refused to be silenced. My phone lit up with another anonymous number, but this time I didn't even look. Let them threaten, let them scheme, let them try to rebuild their crumbling empire. I had my own empire to build now, and unlike theirs, mine would be built on truth. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, watching the city lights twinkle like stars. Somewhere out there, the Gibsons were scrambling to save themselves. But here, in my own space, I was finally, completely free. 3 years passed like a whirlwind. My forensics division had grown from just me to a team of 12, and we'd uncovered enough financial fraud to fill a true crime novel. But nothing prepared me for the headline that blazed across my screen that morning. "Gibson family faces bankruptcy. Empire crumbles under weight of legal battles." "You saw it?" Victoria's voice came through my speakerphone. "I saw." I scrolled through the article, past photos of Jesus being escorted from court and Camilla hiding behind designer sunglasses. "They're selling the house," Victoria continued. "Everything's gone, the vacation homes, the cars, even Mom's precious art collection." "How are you holding up?" "Better than them. I got out early enough, thanks to you." She paused. "Julian's asking about you again." I glanced at the framed certificate on my wall. Financial Forensics Expert of the Year. "I'm not interested." "He's different now. The trust fund's gone, he's actually working." A knock at my office door interrupted us. "Got to go, Vic. Talk later." Sandra walked in, followed by a familiar face that made my blood run cold. Julian. "Look who I found in reception," Sandra said, clearly unaware of the tension crackling through the room. "Says he's here about a position?" Julian looked different, thinner, his expensive suit replaced by department store business wear. "Hello, Sam. Sandra, could you give us a minute?" After she left, I stayed behind my desk, maintaining the barrier between us. "What are you doing here?" "I heard you were hiring forensic accountants." He tried to smile. Ironic, right? You can't work here. Why not? I have experience with financial fraud. His attempt at humor fell flat. From both sides now. This isn't funny, Julian. I know. He sat down uninvited. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to rebuild my life. The right way this time. And you thought coming here was a good start? I thought coming to the best was a good start. He gestured at my awards. You've made quite a name for yourself. While you were serving house arrest? He flinched. I deserved that. You deserved worse. Probably. He leaned forward. But I'm trying to make amends, starting with you. I don't need your amends. I needed your support 3 years ago. I know. I was a coward. He pulled out a folder. But look at my qualifications. I'm good at what I do, Sam. I could help your team. Help them what? Hide money better? Help them find people like my parents. Like I used to be. His voice cracked. Please, I need a chance. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Mom's in the hospital, Dad too. Stress and heart problems. They're asking for you. I showed Julian the message. His face fell. I just came from there. It's bad, Sam. They've lost everything. That's what happens when you build an empire on lies. They know that now. He stood up. We all do, thanks to you. Julian, just think about it, okay? The job, visiting them, all of it. He placed his resume on my desk. I'm not the same person who chose them over you. Neither are they. After he left, Sandra poked her head in. Everything okay? They're broke, I said, still staring at the door. The mighty Gibsons are broke. Karma's a hell of a thing. She picked up Julian's resume. He's qualified. He's my ex-husband. Who better to catch fraudsters than a reformed one? She shrugged. Just saying. That evening I sat in my favorite coffee shop, turning my phone over and over. Finally, I called Victoria. How bad is it? Dad's had another heart attack. Mom's blood pressure is through the roof. The doctors say stress is killing them both. And what do they want from me? Forgiveness, I think. She sighed. Or maybe just a chance to apologize before it's too late. I thought about Julian's face in my office, the genuine remorse, the humility that had replaced his family's trademark arrogance. They're at Memorial Hospital, room 412. Hope crept into her voice. Does this mean... It means I'll think about it. After hanging up, I opened Julian's resume again. His cover letter caught my eye. I learned about financial crime from the inside. Now I want to prevent it. Who better to catch a thief than someone who used to be one? My phone buzzed with a news alert. Former Gibson attorney Roman Lee begins prison sentence. The universe had a twisted sense of humor sometimes. Here I was, successful and respected, while the family that had looked down on me was falling apart. But as I stared at the hospital address Victoria had sent, I realized something. Revenge wasn't what I wanted anymore. Maybe what I needed now was closure. I grabbed my keys, making a decision that would change everything. Again, the antiseptic smell of the hospital hit me as soon as I stepped off the elevator. Victoria was waiting, looking exhausted in wrinkled business clothes. You came. She hugged me tight. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I. I glanced at the room numbers. How are they? Dad's sleeping? Mom's? She gestured toward the waiting area where Camilla sat alone, staring out the window. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She looked smaller somehow, older, her hair streaked with gray she'd stopped hiding. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Samantha? Her voice cracked. You're here? Victoria called. I stayed standing, maintaining distance. Said you wanted to talk? Yes. She smoothed her hospital visitor's badge with trembling fingers. Please sit. Victoria squeezed my hand and disappeared, leaving us alone. You look well, Camilla said. I see your picture in the business journal sometimes. What do you want, Camilla? She flinched at my directness, something that would have earned me a scathing remark 3 years ago. Now she just looked tired. I want to apologize. She twisted her wedding ring, one of the few pieces of jewelry she had left, though I know it's not enough. For what specifically? The threats? The insults? Trying to buy my silence? For all of it. She met my eyes. for not seeing what was right in front of me, a daughter who could have made this family better, not just richer. I laughed bitterly. I was never your daughter. No, she agreed, because I wouldn't let you be. And now look at us. She gestured to herself. Everything we had, gone. Everything we were, destroyed. And you? She smiled sadly. You're everything we pretended to be. A nurse interrupted us, checking on Jesus. Through the door, I could see him sleeping, tubes and monitors everywhere. He had another attack this morning, Camilla said quietly. The doctor says stress and shame are as dangerous as any disease. Why am I really here, Camilla? Because we need help. She straightened her spine, a ghost of her old pride. Not money. We don't deserve that. But guidance. A way forward. And you think I can help? You built something honest, real. Her voice broke. Teach us how. Before I could respond, Julian appeared with coffee cups. He stopped short seeing me. Sam, you came. Don't read too much into it. I stood up. I should go. Please. Camilla reached for my hand but stopped herself. Just think about it. We have nothing left to hide, nothing left to lose. Except our chance to make things right, Julian added quietly. I looked between them, my ex-husband and his mother, both shadows of their former selves. I'll think about it. In the elevator, Victoria caught up with me. That went better than expected. Did it? Mom actually apologized. That's like seeing a unicorn. I pressed the lobby button. She's desperate. She's changed. We all have. Victoria leaned against the wall. You know what Dad said yesterday? He said you were the best thing that could have happened to this family. Because I destroyed it? Because you forced us to face ourselves. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out. I need time, Vic. Take it. We're not going anywhere. She smiled sadly. We can't afford to. At home, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. A new email from Sandra popped up. Thought you should see this. S. Attached was Julian's reference letter from his community service supervisor. Mr. Gibson has shown exceptional dedication to helping other white-collar criminals understand the impact of their actions. His personal experience and genuine remorse make him an invaluable mentor. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian. Thank you for coming today. Whatever you decide, I want you to know something. You didn't just expose our crimes. You saved us from ourselves. I stared at the message, remembering the day I'd found those documents, the night I'd left, the years of building myself up from the ashes of that life. Another text came through, this time from Camilla. I know we don't deserve your help, but we're finally ready to learn. I opened my work calendar and looked at the upcoming training schedule for new forensic accountants. There was one spot left. My finger hovered over Julian's contact. The woman I was 3 years ago would have deleted it, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I was stronger now, secure enough to help without being hurt. I pressed call. Sam? The position starts Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. Really? His voice cracked. You mean it? One chance, Julian, that's all. Thank you. I won't let you down. Not again. After hanging up, I texted Victoria. Tell your mother I'll stop by tomorrow. We have work to do. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't watching your enemies fall. It's helping them learn to walk a better path. Monday morning came with an unexpected weight in my stomach. Julian stood in my office doorway, wearing a modest button-down and holding a worn leather briefcase, a far cry from his former $3,000 suits. Your desk is over there. I pointed to the cubicle outside my office. First task is reviewing these cases. He took the files without complaint. Thank you for this opportunity, Sam. Don't thank me yet. You've got a lot to prove. The weeks that followed were a strange dance of professional distance and unavoidable intimacy. Julian threw himself into the work, staying late, asking questions, learning everything he could. He's good, Sandra admitted one evening, watching him explain money laundering patterns to our newest team member. Really good. He should be. He learned from the best criminals in the business. And now he's learning from the best investigator. She smiled. Life's funny that way. A knock interrupted us. Victoria stood in the doorway, looking worried. Dad's being released tomorrow, she said, but they're losing the house. They have nowhere to go. I sighed. Where are they staying? My place for now, Mom's struggling with it. Julian joined us, concern etched on his face. How bad? She tried to use her platinum card yesterday, forgot it was canceled, had a breakdown in the grocery store. I'll stop by after work, he said, then glanced at me. If that's okay? I nodded. Take the morning too, family first. His eyes softened at my words. Thanks, Sam. The next day, I found myself pulling up to Victoria's modest suburban home. Jesus sat in a wheelchair on the front porch, staring at nothing. Samantha? He straightened when he saw me. This is unexpected. Trust me, I'm as surprised as you are. I sat in the adjacent chair. How are you feeling? Humbled. He laughed humorlessly. Do you know what I had for breakfast today? Store-brand cereal. I used to think that was beneath me. And now? Now I'm grateful Victoria can afford cereal at all. He turned to me. You were right about everything. I know. No, let me finish. He gripped his armrest. I built my life on lies, taught my children that money matters more than morals. You could have destroyed us completely. That wasn't my goal. But you had the power to do it. He smiled sadly. Instead, you're helping Julian rebuild, teaching him honest work. He's a good student when he wants to be. Camilla appeared in the doorway, holding grocery bags. Samantha, I didn't know you were coming. Just checking in. I stood to help her with the bags. Victoria mentioned you needed some groceries. Inside, Camilla's hands shook as she unpacked store-brand items. It's all so different now. Different doesn't mean worse. She paused, holding a box of pasta. You know what I miss most? Not the jewelry or the cars. I miss feeling superior. She laughed bitterly. How awful is that? It's honest. I started putting items away. That's a start. Julian says you're teaching him to catch people like we used to be. That's right. Could you... She hesitated. Could you teach me too? Not for work, just to understand what we did wrong. I studied her face, the genuine remorse, the uncertainty. We're having a seminar next week for families affected by financial fraud. You should come. Her eyes welled up. Really? Both of you. I glanced at Jesus through the window. It might help. That evening, Julian caught me leaving the office. Heard you visited my parents. Checking on my investment. He smiled. The great Samantha, still taking care of everyone. Don't push it. I mean it. He stepped closer. You could have walked away, left us all to drown. Instead, you're throwing lifelines. Maybe I just like watching you all learn to swim. Or maybe, he said softly, you're showing us what real family looks like. I stepped back. Julian. I know, just thank you. For everything. Walking to my car, I thought about how much had changed. The mighty Gibsons, learning to live like regular people. Julian working honestly for the first time in his life. Camilla and Jesus, facing their mistakes. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Mom's been practicing introducing herself without mentioning her social status. Baby steps, right? I smiled, remembering Camilla's perfectly curated introductions at charity galas. Yes, baby steps. Another text came through from Julian. Dad asked about opening a small consulting firm, legitimate this time. Would you consider being an advisor? I stared at the message, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but something close to hope. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's reconstruction, building something better from the ruins of what was broken. The seminar room buzzed with nervous energy as families filed in. I spotted Camilla and Jesus in the back row, both looking uncomfortable but determined. Julian stood beside me at the podium, reviewing his notes. Ready? I asked. He nodded. Never thought I'd be on this side of things. Welcome, everyone, I began. I'm Samantha, and this is Julian. We're here to talk about healing from financial fraud, both as perpetrators and victims. Julian stepped forward. 3 years ago, I was part of a family that committed massive tax fraud. My wife at the time, Samantha exposed us. He met my eyes. It was the best thing that ever happened to us. The room fell silent. Today, he continued, I work with her to prevent others from making the same mistakes. And my parents? He gestured to the back. Jesus raised his hand shakily. I'd like to speak, if I may. I nodded, and he wheeled himself to the front, Camilla following close behind. My name is Jesus, and I was a criminal. His voice cracked. I destroyed my family's reputation, lost our fortune, and nearly lost my soul. But my former daughter-in-law... He turned to me. She taught me something valuable. True wealth isn't in offshore accounts. Camilla touched his shoulder. We're learning to live differently now, honestly. It's hard, but it's better. After the seminar, Sandra pulled me aside. The board loved your family rehabilitation program proposal. They're greenlighting it next quarter. Really? I glanced at Julian, who was deep in conversation with a young man whose father had embezzled his college fund. Really, they want Julian to head it up, with you as supervisor. Victoria appeared with coffee for everyone. Did you tell her the other news? What other news? Dad's consulting firm got its first legitimate client. She beamed. A small business wanting to ensure their books are clean. And Mom's volunteering at the community center, Julian added, joining us. Teaching budgeting classes, if you can believe it. I shook my head, amazed. The mighty have truly fallen. No, Camilla said, approaching our group. We've risen, just differently than before. She hesitated. Samantha, would you consider having dinner with us tonight, as a family? The word family hung in the air. I looked at Julian, who carefully kept his expression neutral, then at Victoria, who squeezed my hand. Okay, I said. But I'm choosing the restaurant, something modest. Perfect, Camilla smiled. We're learning to love modest. That evening, sitting in a cozy Italian restaurant, the same one where Roman had begged for help, I watched the former titans of society share pasta and laugh at bad jokes. To new beginnings, Jesus raised his water glass. Alcohol was forbidden with his heart medication. And to Samantha, Julian added softly, who showed us the way? I studied them all. Jesus with his humbled smile, Camilla's genuine warmth, Victoria's proud grin, Julian's hopeful eyes. You know, I said, when I exposed your fraud, I wanted revenge. I wanted you to hurt like I hurt. We deserved it, Camilla admitted. Maybe, but this... I gestured to all of them. This is better than revenge. This is redemption. Does this mean... Julian started. No, I cut him off gently. We're not getting back together. He nodded, accepting. I know, but we're something else now, aren't we? Something better than before? Yes, I smiled. We are. My phone buzzed. A text from Sandra. Board wants to fast-track the rehabilitation program. You've started something big here. I looked up at my strange, reformed family. Jesus discussing his new consulting client with genuine excitement. Camilla sharing budgeting tips with Victoria. Julian reviewing notes for tomorrow's fraud prevention class. Everything okay? Victoria asked. Perfect, I replied, putting my phone away. Just perfect. Later, walking to my car, Julian caught up with me. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For showing us there's life after falling from grace. A better life. I touched his arm briefly. Just don't waste it. Never again, he promised. Driving home, I passed the old Gibson mansion, now sold to a tech entrepreneur. I didn't feel the pang I expected. Instead, I felt peace. My phone lit up with a family photo Victoria had taken at dinner. All of us laughing, genuine and unposed. No designer clothes, no pretense, no lies. Just people who had lost everything and found something more valuable in the process. I saved the photo and smiled. Sometimes the best endings aren't about getting even. They're about getting better. And we had all gotten so much better than I ever imagined possible.
Grandma Ruth's hands trembled as she gripped my wrists across the engagement party's elaborately decorated table. Her eyes, usually warm and gentle, burned with an intensity I'd never seen before. The string quartet's melody faded into background noise as she leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. The shadows, Lydia. They linger behind him like hungry wolves. I'm Lydia, And this was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, my grandmother had just turned my perfect engagement party into something from a Gothic novel. "Grandma, please," I whispered back, conscious of the curious glances from nearby guests. "This isn't the time." "Time is exactly what we're running out of, dear." Her grip tightened. "I've seen what lies ahead. That man, he's not what he seems." The crystal champagne glasses clinked around us as Mason, my fiancé, worked the room with his signature charm. I watched him laugh with my brother Sam, their shoulders touching as they shared some private joke. Mason caught my eye and winked, his perfect smile making my heart flutter despite Grandma's warning. "He's good, isn't he?" Grandma Ruth's words cut through my thoughts. "Making everyone believe. Your brother doesn't see it yet, but he will. The doubt's already there, like a seed waiting to sprout." I pulled my hands away. "That's enough. Mason's done nothing but support me and my business. He believes in me." "Oh, child." She shook her head slowly. "He believes in what you can give him. There's a difference." Mother appeared behind Grandma Ruth, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Mom, you're upsetting Lydia. This is her special day." "Julia, you feel it too. Don't deny it." Grandma turned to face my mother. "The way he looked at Lydia's financial statements last week, like a fox eyeing the hen house." My chest tightened. "You're being ridiculous. Mason's a financial advisor. Of course he'd be interested in my business records." A little too interested." Sam's voice joined in as he approached our table. His earlier jovial expression had vanished. "Did you know he asked me about your investment portfolio yesterday?" "He's my fiancé," I snapped, louder than intended. Several heads turned our way. "We're planning a future together. These things matter." Nate, my accountant and oldest friend, appeared at my elbow with fresh champagne. His timing was perfect, or terrible, depending on how you looked at it. "Everything okay here?" "Perfectly fine," I said, but my voice cracked. Just my family sharing their delightful opinions about my future husband. Nate's eyes met mine, and I saw something there. Concern, maybe? He'd been oddly quiet since I'd announced the engagement 2 months ago. "The shadows are gathering," Grandma Ruth announced, her voice carrying across nearby tables. "Mark my words, there will be tears before winter's end." Mason chose that moment to return, sliding his arm around my waist. "What's this about shadows?" His laugh was easy, confident. "Surely we're celebrating light and love today." I felt Grandma Ruth's eyes boring into us both. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as she stood, her small frame somehow filling the space between us. "Behind that smile of yours," she said, each word sharp as glass, "there's nothing but darkness. And my Lydia, she's too precious for your games." Mason's arm tightened around me. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're protective of Lydia, but—" "No, you don't understand," she cut him off. "But you will. When everything you've built comes crashing down, remember this moment. Remember I saw you coming." She turned and walked away, leaving a wake of whispers and shocked faces. Mother hurried after her, while Sam stood frozen, his expression unreadable. Mason laughed it off, but his hand trembled slightly against my hip. "Well, that was dramatic. Shall we cut the cake?" I nodded mechanically, but as we walked toward the elaborate 3-tiered cake, I couldn't shake the chill that had settled in my bones. Because for just a moment, when Grandma Ruth had made her proclamation, I'd seen something flicker across Mason's face. Fear. And Grandma Ruth had never, not once in her 78 years, been wrong about these things. The morning after the engagement party, Sam cornered me in my workshop. I was sorting through a shipment of raw gemstones, but my hands kept fumbling the pieces. 3 sapphires had already slipped through my fingers, scattering across the wooden workbench. "We need to talk about Mason," Sam said, closing the door behind him. "If this is about Grandma's performance last night, it's not just that." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Remember how Mason said he played Division I football at Stanford?" I set down a particularly valuable emerald. "Of course, he was their starting quarterback for 2 seasons. Funny thing about that." Sam's voice had that edge he used when dismantling someone's financial strategy. I called my college roommate. He's coaching there now. Mason Carter never played for Stanford. Not a single game. The emerald rolled off the workbench. I didn't move to catch it. That's impossible. He has photos. From high school games, if you look closely. Lydia, I've been digging. His investment firm? It's registered to a P.O. box in Delaware. The office address he gave you? It's a virtual workspace that anyone can rent by the hour. My throat felt like sandpaper. You investigated my fiancé? Someone had to. He leaned against my workbench. Did you know he's been asking around about taking out a business loan against your company's assets? The room tilted slightly. He wouldn't do that without discussing it with me first. Wouldn't he? Sam's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. Mason's mother is here to see you. Megan? I hadn't expected to see her until the wedding planning started. Did you tell her where my workshop was? She found it herself. Sam's hand rested on my shoulder. Want me to stay? I shook my head. Whatever this was, I needed to handle it myself. Megan Carter swept in like an autumn storm, all designer clothes and perfectly maintained composure. But something was off. Her hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with her purse strap. Lydia, dear. She didn't quite meet my eyes. We need to discuss Mason. Sam squeezed my shoulder before leaving, closing the door with a soft click that felt oddly final. Is everything all right? I asked, though nothing felt all right anymore. No. Megan's composure cracked. It's happening again, and I won't let another family be destroyed. What's happening again? She pulled out a manila envelope. These are records of Mason's previous engagement, to Caroline Weber 2 years ago. Her family lost everything. My legs gave out. I sank onto my work stool, the envelope heavy in my hands. He convinced her family to invest in a tech startup. Megan continued, her voice hollow. The company never existed. By the time they realized, Mason was gone, along with $3 million. The workshop's walls seemed to close in. Why are you telling me this? Because your grandmother reminded me of Caroline's mother. She had the same suspicions, the same warnings. We ignored her. Megan's eyes filled with tears. I've enabled him for too long, covered his tracks, made excuses. But watching him target you, seeing your family try to protect you, I can't do it anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Mason. Great news about that investment opportunity. Need to meet ASAP. Bringing paperwork. He's already starting, Megan whispered, reading the message over my shoulder. First comes the charm, then the business opportunity, then... The workshop door opened. Mason stood there, his perfect smile faltering as he saw his mother. Mom? His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. What are you doing here? The right thing, finally. She straightened her spine, years of guilt falling away. I'm telling Lydia everything. Mason's smile vanished completely. In that moment, I saw what Grandma Ruth had warned about. The shadows behind his eyes, the darkness beneath the charm. You really shouldn't have done that, he said softly, and somehow those quiet words carried more menace than any shout. I clutched the manila envelope, my engagement ring suddenly feeling like a shackle. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Or maybe that was just the sound of my world crumbling. Sam's footsteps pounded up the workshop stairs. Mason's hand moved toward his jacket pocket, and I realized with crystal clarity that this was only the beginning of what Grandma Ruth had foreseen. The shadows weren't just lingering anymore. They were closing in. The manila envelope sat unopened on my desk for 3 days. Every morning, I'd trace its edges with trembling fingers, but couldn't bring myself to look inside. Until Nate showed up with that haunted look in his eyes. We need to talk about your business accounts, he said, setting his laptop down. Something's wrong. I pushed Caroline Weber's envelope aside. Define wrong. Someone's been accessing your financial records, multiple login attempts from unfamiliar IP addresses. His fingers flew across the keyboard. And there's this. He turned the screen toward me. A series of pending transactions appeared. Transfer authorizations I'd never seen before. That's impossible. I leaned closer. I never approved these. They're scheduled for tomorrow morning. 5 separate transfers, totaling just under $2 million. Nate's voice cracked. To an offshore account. My engagement ring caught the light, mocking me. Mason has my passwords. I know. Nate wouldn't meet my eyes. He called me yesterday, asking about expediting international transfers, said you were planning to expand the business overseas. The envelope suddenly felt like it was burning through my desk. I ripped it open, documents spilling across my keyboard. Police reports, bank statements, newspaper clippings, all telling the same story. Caroline Weber's family jewelry business, gutted from the inside out. My phone buzzed. Mason's text lit up the screen. Dinner tonight? Have exciting news about our future. Call Sam, I told Nate. And my grandmother, we need... The office door opened. Mason stood there, earlier than expected, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Sweetheart? His gaze flickered between me and the scattered documents. What's all this? Funny story, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I've been learning about your previous engagement. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mason's smile vanished like it had never existed. My mother, he said flatly. She's always been unstable. Whatever she told you. Caroline Weber's father died in prison. I cut him off. After taking the fall for financial fraud. Fraud you orchestrated. He took a step forward. Nate shifted, placing himself between us. You don't understand. Mason's voice turned silky. Caroline's family was already corrupt. I simply exposed what was already there. But you and me were different, special. The transfer authorizations, I said. Were those special too? Something dangerous flashed across his face. Business opportunities require quick decisions. I was only trying to help. By stealing my life's work? By securing our future. He moved closer, that familiar charm sliding back into place. Think about it, Lydia. With your business acumen and my connections, we could build an empire. Built on what? Lies? Theft? Built on trust. His hand reached for mine. Don't let your family's paranoia ruin what we have. Your grandmother, your brother, they're afraid of change, of success. The worst part was, for a moment, I almost believed him. That's when I understood how Caroline Weber's family had fallen for it too. You're right about one thing, I said, sliding off my engagement ring. This is about trust. The mask slipped. Just for a second, but long enough to see the coldness underneath. Don't do anything you'll regret, he said softly. Too late. I nodded to Nate, who hit a key on his laptop. I just reversed all those transfer authorizations and copied every suspicious transaction to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Mason moved so fast I barely saw it, but Sam moved faster, appearing in the doorway behind him. Touch my sister, Sam said quietly, and find out what happens next. Mason's laugh was hollow. You have no idea what you're dealing with. No, Grandma Ruth's voice carried from behind Sam. But we're about to find out. She stepped into view, holding a phone. On its screen was a video call with Megan Carter. I'm sorry, Mason, his mother said. I've told them everything, about Caroline, about the others. It's over. The shadows Grandma Ruth had warned about weren't just visible now. They were consuming him from the inside out. As Mason's carefully constructed world began to crumble, I saw the truth. Sometimes the most dangerous monsters wear the most convincing masks. And sometimes, the only way to fight darkness is to drag it into the light. Mason vanished after the confrontation, but his ghost lingered in every notification on my phone. 3 days of silence, then a text that made my blood freeze. Remember that investment contract you signed last month? I called Nate immediately. Found him already waiting outside my office, pale-faced and clutching a stack of papers. Tell me you didn't sign anything, he said. My stomach dropped. It was just a routine business partnership agreement. Mason said, it wasn't routine. Nate spread the documents across my desk. This gives him power of attorney over your business assets, and it's dated 3 weeks ago. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of my desk. That's not what I signed. He showed me something completely different. Digital document switching. Nate's voice was hollow. The version you saw isn't the one that got filed. My phone buzzed again. Mason, let's talk about your options. Dinner at 8? Don't respond, Grandma Ruth said from the doorway. I hadn't even heard her come in. He's setting a trap. I have to do something. My voice cracked. He could destroy everything I've built. That's exactly what he wants you to think. She moved to the window, staring out at the gathering dusk. Fear makes people predictable. My phone lit up with another message, this time from an unknown number. A photo appeared. Security camera footage of Mason entering a law office with a familiar figure. Is that? Nate leaned closer. That's Caroline Weber's father, from 2 days ago. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. He's working with them now. Of course he is, Sam said, striding in with his laptop. Because Caroline's father just got out of prison, and guess who's helping him rebuild his jewelry empire? I thought of my client list, my supplier connections, everything Mason had access to through that fraudulent contract. He's going to hand them my entire business infrastructure. Unless, Nate prompted, unless I buy him out. The words tasted like ash. That's what this dinner invitation is really about. Grandma Ruth turned from the window. You're not going. I have to. If I don't, if you do, you'll walk right into his endgame. She gripped my shoulders. Think, child. Why now? Why partner with the very family he destroyed? My phone buzzed again. Another photo. Mason with Megan at what looked like a private airport. Today's date stamped in the corner. He's running, Sam said. The FBI investigation spooked him. This dinner? It's his last play before he disappears. A final message from Mason appeared. Tick-tock, sweetheart. Some opportunities only knock once. I looked at the contract spread across my desk, at the carefully crafted web of lies that had nearly snared me. Then at Nate's worried face, Sam's protective stance, Grandma Ruth's knowing eyes. What if? My voice strengthened. What if we let him think he's won? Nate straightened. You have a plan. Caroline's father wants revenge on Mason as much as I do. I picked up my phone. And I'm betting Mason never told him about our little FBI investigation. A trap within a trap, Sam mused. Risky. Everything's risky. I started typing a response to Mason. But Grandma's right. Fear makes people predictable. And right now, Mason's running scared. Be careful, Grandma Ruth warned. The cornered wolf bites hardest. I hit send on my reply. 8 o'clock. Let's discuss our future. Mason's response was immediate. That's my girl. The usual place? I watched the cursor blink, thinking of Caroline Weber's father, of all the other lives Mason had destroyed, of the shadows Grandma Ruth had seen lurking behind his smile. Yes, I typed. Time to finish what we started. Nate touched my arm. You don't have to do this alone. I'm not. I looked at my family, my real support system. I never was. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. By 8 o'clock, they'd break. And in their wake, either my business would be in ruins, or Mason would finally face the consequences of his actions. The choice was mine. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't afraid to make it. The restaurant's private dining room felt like a trap, with its dim lighting and closed doors. Mason sat across from me, perfectly composed in his tailored suit, while thunder rumbled outside. The storm had followed me here. You look tired, sweetheart. He poured wine I hadn't asked for. Business troubles keeping you up? I thought of the FBI agent hidden 2 tables away, of Sam watching the back exit, of Nate monitoring every digital transaction from his car. One wrong move could unravel everything. Actually, I pulled out a check. I've decided to accept your investment proposal. His eyes flickered, surprise, then triumph. I knew you'd see reason. $2 million. I slid the check across the table. In exchange for dissolving our contract, Mason's smile didn't waver, but his fingers tightened around his wine glass. Why the sudden change of heart? Let's call it insurance. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Against any future misunderstandings. The door opened. Caroline Weber's father walked in, right on schedule. Mason's composure cracked for just a second. Mason! Mr. Weber's voice carried years of prison-hardened edge. Quite a coincidence, running into you here. Robert! Mason recovered quickly. I was just discussing business with my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, I corrected. And we were actually discussing your pattern of fraudulent contracts. Mason's charm vanished like smoke. Careful, Lydia. Some doors can't be unclosed. Like the ones to federal prison? Robert Weber pulled out a chair. My daughter sends her regards. This is a private dinner, Mason said through clenched teeth. Not anymore. I nodded toward the window, where Megan Carter's silhouette appeared. Your mother had quite a lot to share about your overseas accounts. Thunder crashed closer. Mason's hand moved toward his jacket pocket, where he'd been keeping a thumb drive with what he thought were my complete business records. It's gone, I said quietly. While you were meeting with Robert yesterday, Nate cleared out your office. Amazing what a federal warrant can accomplish. You're bluffing. But sweat beaded on his forehead. The contract was invalidated the moment you filed fraudulent documents. Robert Weber's smile was shark-like. The FBI is very interested in pattern recognition, Mason. First my family, then Lydia's. Mason stood abruptly, his chair scraping against hardwood. This is harassment. I'm leaving. No, said a new voice. You're not. The FBI agent stepped into view, badge glinting. Behind him, Sam blocked the other exit. Through the window, I saw Nate's car pull up, headlights illuminating Megan Carter as she walked toward the entrance. It's over, Mason. My voice didn't shake. The only question is how many charges you want to face. He laughed, a hollow, dangerous sound. You think this ends here? I've got copies of everything. One phone call, and your entire business infrastructure goes public. Every supplier, every client. Already warned, Nate said, entering with a laptop. They're actually quite interested in testifying about your attempted corporate espionage. Mason's facade finally shattered. The shadows Grandma Ruth had warned about weren't just visible now. They were consuming him, turning his handsome features ugly with rage. You stupid bitch, he snarled. I made you, without me. Without you, I cut him off. I'm exactly what I've always been, a woman who built something real, unlike you. He lunged, not at me, but at the laptop Nate held. Sam moved faster, tackling him before he reached it. The FBI agent stepped in, handcuffs glinting in the lightning flash from outside. Mason Carter, the agent began. You're under arrest for fraud, attempted extortion. I didn't stay to hear the rest. Walking out into the storm felt like breaking through a surface I'd been drowning under. Rain soaked my clothes, but I barely noticed. Grandma Ruth waited by my car, umbrella in hand. The shadows are lifting, she said simply. Not yet. I watched through the window as Mason was led away. There's still the trial, the publicity, the cleanup. But you're not afraid anymore. She squeezed my hand. That's what matters. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Mason's face as he was placed in a police car. For a moment, our eyes met through the rain-streaked glass. I saw no trace of the man I'd thought I loved, only the monster he'd always been. The storm was breaking, and somehow I knew the worst was finally over. The courthouse steps felt endless as I climbed them, each step heavier than the last. Mason's preliminary hearing should have been a victory. Instead, his last words to me in the restaurant haunted every moment. You think this is over? I'm taking everything. I hadn't understood what he meant. Not until now. Nate waited at the top, his face ashen. Lydia, wait. There's something you need to know. But I'd already seen her. Caroline Weber stood by the entrance, her designer outfit a stark contrast to her haunted eyes. Next to her, Mason's mother wrung her hands. He played us all, Caroline said as I approached. Even now, he's still playing us. Inside, my legal team huddled around a stack of documents. Sam paced nearby, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in urgent whispers. The air felt thick with defeat. What happened? My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Mason's lawyers filed a countersuit, Nate explained. He's claiming you orchestrated everything. The fraudulent contracts, the investment schemes, all of it. And he has evidence. That's impossible. But my hands started shaking. The FBI has proof. Fabricated emails. Sam cut in, ending his call. Dating back months. Messages that make it look like you were the mastermind and Mason was trying to stop you. He must have been planning this from the beginning. Caroline stepped forward. He did the same thing to my father, created a paper trail that made him look guilty, while Mason walked away clean. By the time we figured it out, it was too late, Megan Carter finished. I'm so sorry, Lydia. I should have warned you he'd do this. The courtroom doors opened. Mason walked out in handcuffs, flanked by his lawyers. But he was smiling, that same charming smile that had once made me trust him. Last chance, sweetheart, he said softly as they passed. Drop the charges, and maybe your business survives this. My attorney appeared, clutching more papers. Ms. Thompson, we need to discuss options. These allegations, they're incredibly detailed. If they stick, when? Mason called over his shoulder. Not if. I watched him disappear down the hallway, the pieces finally clicking together. Every late-night work session, every time he'd helped with my business records, every moment I'd thought he was supporting my dreams, he'd been building his defense. The suppliers are already pulling out, Nate said quietly. 3 major contracts canceled this morning. Your reputation. Is everything in this business? I finished. The walls seemed to close in. He knew that. He always knew. Grandma Ruth's voice echoed in my memory. The shadows are lifting. But she'd been wrong. The shadows weren't lifting. They were drowning me. We can fight this, Sam insisted. There has to be something. Fight with what? My voice cracked. He's poisoned every relationship I've built. Even if we win, the damage is done. My business, my reputation. Caroline touched my arm. Don't let him win, not again. But Mason had already won. Every careful step I'd taken to expose him had somehow played into his hands. The very evidence I'd gathered against him was being twisted to destroy me instead. My phone buzzed. Another supplier terminating their contract. Then another. And another. Lydia! Nate's voice was desperate. Look at me. We're not done. There's still... Still what? I pulled away from his reach. My life's work is imploding. Everything I built, he's taking it all. Through the courthouse windows, I could see reporters gathering. The story was already spreading. Successful businesswoman exposed as fraudulent schemer. Mason's perfect revenge. I need air, I managed, pushing past everyone. No one tried to stop me. Outside, rain fell again. Or maybe it had never stopped. I stood in it, letting it soak through my court clothes, wondering how I'd missed the truth for so long. Mason hadn't just wanted my money. He'd wanted to destroy me completely. And now, watching my phone light up with more cancellations, more accusations, more evidence of my world crumbling, I realized the true depth of his revenge. He'd made me trust him, love him, believe in our future, all so this moment would hurt more. The shadows hadn't just lingered behind him. They'd been waiting for me all along, and I had walked right into them. 3 days after the courthouse, Nate burst into my workshop, laptop clutched to his chest like a shield. His face held something I hadn't seen in weeks. Hope. We found it, he said, breathless. The real paper trail. I looked up from the half-packed boxes of inventory, all that remained of my business. What are you talking about? Mason's mother. He set the laptop down, hands shaking with excitement. She kept everything. Every email, every transaction, every fake account he created. She's been documenting his schemes for years. The door opened again. Megan Carter walked in, followed by Carolyn Weber and my brother Sam. Each carried folders thick with documents. It wasn't enough to just confess. Megan said quietly. You needed proof. Real proof. My phone buzzed. Mason's number. Right on schedule. He's coming, Sam said, checking his watch. Thinks he's here to negotiate dropping the charges. Are we ready? Caroline asked, her voice steel-edged. The workshop door opened one final time. Mason stepped in, his lawyer conspicuously absent. His smile faltered when he saw the gathering. Well, he drawled, recovering quickly. Quite the reunion. Sit down, Mason. My voice didn't shake, not anymore. I'd rather stand. His eyes narrowed at his mother. Planning another dramatic confession, Mom? No, Megan said, just delivering evidence. Sam moved to block the door. Nate's fingers flew across his keyboard, and suddenly the workshop's walls lit up with projected documents. Years of Mason's carefully hidden paper trail, exposed in glowing detail. Cute presentation, Mason said, but sweat beaded on his forehead. All easily explained. By the secondary email server you kept in Singapore? Nate cut in. The one your mother had access to? Mason's smile vanished. You're bluffing. Like you bluffed about Stanford? Caroline stepped forward. Or about the investment firm you never actually registered? Or about the offshore accounts? I added, watching his facade crack. The ones you used to destroy Caroline's family before targeting mine? Everything you built, Megan said softly, was built on lies I helped you maintain. Not anymore. Mason's charm disappeared entirely, replaced by something cold and dangerous. You really want to play this game? Fine, release those documents. Watch your precious reputation burn with mine. My reputation? I laughed. Actually laughed. You already destroyed that. But here's what you didn't count on. I don't care anymore. His confidence wavered. What? You can have my reputation, my business, all of it. I stepped closer, because unlike you, I can build something real again, something honest. With what? He sneered. Your suppliers are gone. Your clients are right here, Caroline interrupted, pulling out her phone. Every family you've destroyed over the years. We've been talking, planning, building something new. Understanding dawned in Mason's eyes as Nate projected more documents, business plans, partnership agreements, signatures from dozens of Mason's former victims. A network, Sam explained, of people who know exactly who you are, what you do, how you operate. And this time, Megan added, we have proof. Mason lunged for the laptop, but I was ready. My hand caught his wrist, the same way he'd once held mine, while sliding on that engagement ring. The FBI already has everything, I said quietly. Every document, every scheme, every victim's statement. It's over. You're lying, but his voice cracked. No, Mason. For once, someone in this room is telling the truth. The workshop door opened one final time. The FBI agent from the restaurant stepped in, followed by two others. Mason Carter, he began. But Mason was already running, straight into Sam's waiting grip. As they led him away, I saw what Grandma Ruth had warned me about all those months ago. The shadows behind him weren't just visible now. They were dissolving, exposed to the light of truth. Lydia, he called back, desperate. Don't do this. We can still. No, I cut him off. We can't. Because you never saw me clearly. You saw a target, a means to an end. But I see you, Mason. Finally, I see you completely. The door closed behind him. In the sudden quiet, I felt something shift, not just in the room, but in myself. The weight of his deception lifted, replaced by something stronger. The truth. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I could breathe again. The courtroom emptied slowly after Mason's sentencing, but I stayed rooted to my seat, watching him being led away. 15 years. Not for what he'd done to me, but for all the others before me. The shadows had finally caught up with him. Ready to go? Nate's voice was gentle beside me. Almost. I touched the empty space on my finger where the engagement ring had been. It doesn't feel real yet. Outside, autumn sunlight painted the courthouse steps gold. Caroline Weber waited with a group of Mason's other victims, now my business partners. Their chatter about our new venture carried on the breeze. The Weber-Thompson Collective, Sam mused, joining us, has a nice ring to it. Better than Victims Anonymous, Caroline called over, making everyone laugh. Megan Carter approached hesitantly, clutching her purse. The others fell quiet. Saya, I've been thinking, she said, about shadows, about how they grow longer when we feed them with silence. Mom? The word slipped out before I could stop it. These past months, she'd become something between a confessor and a surrogate mother. She pressed something into my hand, a small velvet pouch. The diamonds he stole from Caroline's family. I've been keeping them safe, waiting for the right moment. Caroline's breath caught. Those were my grandmother's. And now they're yours again. I passed her the pouch. Maybe we can make something new from them. Something honest. Speaking of new beginnings, Grandma Ruth's voice carried from the courthouse doors. She descended the steps slowly, that knowing smile playing at her lips. I had another dream last night. Grandma, please, I laughed. No more prophecies. Not a prophecy, a certainty. She pointed toward the street. Like that. A dog, scraggly and thin, trotted up the courthouse steps. It headed straight for me, tail wagging hopefully. He's been hanging around all morning, Sam said. No collar, no chip, according to the security guard. The dog pressed against my legs, looking up with eyes that seemed to know everything I'd been through. Without thinking, my hand found his head. See? Grandma Ruth's eyes twinkled. The shadows lift, light returns, and sometimes it brings unexpected gifts. Nate knelt beside me, offering the dog his hand to sniff. He needs a home. We all do, Megan said softly. That's why we're here. My phone buzzed. Another supplier, but not with a cancellation. An order, a big one. The first of many, according to Caroline's business plan. The thing about shadows, Grandma Ruth mused, watching the dog lean into my touch, is that they can't exist without light. Mason cast a long one, but he couldn't dim your shine. Not really. The dog's tail thumped against the courthouse steps. Nate's hand found mine, warm and steady. Around us, my unlikely family of survivors talked about future plans, new beginnings, ways to help others spot the shadows before they grew too dark. You knew, didn't you? I asked Grandma Ruth. Not just about Mason, but about all of this. I knew you'd find your way through. She squeezed my shoulder. The how of it. That was all you. The dog whined, drawing my attention back. In the sunlight, his coat wasn't scraggly at all. Just different, unique. Like he'd weathered his own storms before finding his way here. What should we call him? Nate asked. Phoenix, Caroline suggested. Because he rose from nowhere, just like we will. Too obvious, Sam countered. What about Shadow, I said quietly. Because now we know. They're nothing to be afraid of. Not when you face them together. The dog's tail wagged faster, like he approved. Above us, clouds shifted, changing the patterns of light and shadow on the courthouse steps. But I wasn't watching the shadows anymore. I was watching the people who'd helped me step out of them. My phone buzzed again. Another order, another chance to build something real. Shadow pressed against my legs. Nate's hand squeezed mine, and Grandma Ruth's knowing smile said everything words couldn't. The shadows would always be there. But now I knew. They were just proof of how brightly the light could shine.